I came home from my 12-hour shift at the hospital to find my front door wide open and boxes stacked in my living room. My unemployed brother Ryan was sprawled on my couch, beer in hand, while my parents directed movers to bring in his gaming setup. "We've decided Ryan needs family support during his transition," Mom announced without looking at me. "You have plenty of space." They'd used the spare key I'd given them for emergencies to move him in while I was saving lives. The exhaustion from my shift vanished, instantly replaced by a surge of disbelief that made my hands shake. I stood in my own doorway, still wearing my scrubs that smelled faintly of antiseptic and the coffee I'd spilled during my third emergency surgery of the day. My mother, Sandra, continued directing the movers as if she owned the place, her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the afternoon light streaming through my windows. "Mom, what are you doing?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "You can't just move Ryan into my house without asking me." My father, Robert, emerged from my kitchen carrying a sandwich he'd obviously made from my groceries. At 62, he still had that authoritative presence that used to make me shrink as a child, but now I saw it for what it was: calculated intimidation. "Tracy, don't be dramatic," he said, taking a large bite. "Family helps family. You know, Ryan's been going through a tough time since the company downsized." "That was 14 months ago." I pointed out, watching as Ryan hadn't even bothered to acknowledge my presence. He was 34 years old, 2 years older than me, and was currently engrossed in a video game on my television using my gaming console that I rarely had time to touch. My mother finally turned to face me, and I saw that look in her eyes, the one that preceded every manipulation she'd ever pulled. "Sweetheart, we need to talk about arrangements. Come sit down." "Arrangements." I remained standing, my hospital badge still clipped to my scrubs. "The only arrangement we need to discuss is how quickly Ryan can pack up and leave." Ryan finally paused his game, a smirk spreading across his unshaven face. "Relax, sis. Mom and Dad already handled everything. I'm officially a tenant now." The words hit me like ice water. "What do you mean, officially a tenant?" My mother reached into her designer purse and pulled out a folder, presenting it to me with the satisfaction of someone revealing a winning hand in poker. "We knew you'd be difficult about this, so we took the liberty of creating a proper rental agreement. It's all legal and binding." I snatched the papers from her hands, scanning them with growing horror. There was my signature, or rather a forgery of it, agreeing to rent my spare room to Ryan for the generous sum of $1 per month. The document was dated 2 weeks ago, during a period when I'd been working double shifts to cover for a colleague on maternity leave. "This is fraud," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You forged my signature." "Prove it," Ryan called out, already back to his game. "I've been getting mail here for 2 weeks, changed my driver's license address and everything. As far as the state's concerned, I live here now." My father stepped closer, using his height advantage to look down at me. "Now, Tracy, let's discuss this like adults. We've prepared a family support agreement that outlines everyone's responsibilities." He produced another document, this one detailing how I would provide Ryan with not just free housing, but also food utilities and a monthly allowance of $500 for incidentals, while he pursued new career opportunities. The document went on for 3 pages, including provisions for me to cover his health insurance and car payments. "You've lost your minds," I said, crumpling the paper. "I'm not signing this, and I'm calling the police right now to have him removed." "Go ahead," my mother said smoothly. "We'll tell them about the rental agreement, and then we'll have to tell the family about how their successful doctor, Tracy, threw her poor brother out on the street. Your grandmother would be so disappointed. You know how she values family loyalty." The mention of my grandmother hit exactly where they knew it would. Grandma Rose had raised me as much as my parents had, and her opinion meant everything to me. But I pushed down the guilt, focusing on the anger. "Get out," I said firmly. "All of you, now." My father's face darkened. "We're trying to help you here, Tracy. You're 32, single, no children. What are you doing with all this space, with all that money you make? Your brother needs support, and you're being selfish. I make $90,000 a year, not $900,000. I shot back. I have student loans, a mortgage, and I'm saving for retirement. I can't afford to support a grown man who refuses to work. Can't or won't? My mother asked, her voice dripping with judgment. I see your car in the driveway. That's a luxury vehicle, isn't it? And this house 4 bedrooms for just one person. Meanwhile, your brother has nothing. Ryan stood up, then stretching lazily. Look, Tracy, no need to get all worked up. I'm not asking for much. Just a place to crash while I figure things out. Maybe you could hook me up with a job at the hospital. Something easy, good pay, you know. You want me to get you a job at the hospital? I stared at him incredulously. You dropped out of community college twice and haven't held a job for longer than 3 months in your entire life. What exactly would you do at a hospital? I don't know, management or something. He shrugged. You've got connections, right? Help your brother out. The casualness of his entitlement made my blood boil. I pulled out my phone, but my mother's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist with surprising strength. Before you do anything rash, she said quietly, remember that we have keys. We know your schedule, and Ryan's already established residency. Even if you call the police, they'll tell you it's a civil matter. You'll need to go through formal eviction proceedings, which could take months. Is that really how you want to spend your time and money? I yanked my hand away, looking at these people who claimed to be my family. The calculation in their eyes was something I'd never allowed myself to see before, always making excuses, always believing they had my best interests at heart. But now, standing in my invaded home, watching them orchestrate this ambush, I finally saw the truth. Fine, I said quietly. You want to play legal games. We'll play legal games, but know this, you just destroyed any relationship we had. I hope whatever you think you're going to gain from this is worth losing your daughter. My mother's mask slipped for just a moment, something flickering in her eyes that might have been regret, but it was quickly replaced by cold determination. You'll thank us one day, Tracy. When you have a real family of your own, you'll understand why we had to do this. I walked to my bedroom, the only space that still felt like mine, and locked the door behind me. Through the thin walls, I could hear them talking, planning, dividing up my home like vultures over a carcass. Ryan had turned the television volume up, the sounds of explosions and gunfire filling my once peaceful sanctuary. As I sat on my bed, still in my work clothes, still processing what had just happened, I made myself a promise. They might have won this round, but I wasn't going down without a fight. I pulled out my laptop and started researching lawyers, documenting everything I could remember about the forged signatures and their threats. What I didn't know then was that this was just the beginning. The forged rental agreement was only the tip of an iceberg that would reveal depths of betrayal I never could have imagined. My parents and brother had plans for me, plans that went far beyond free room and board. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me, seeing only the compliant daughter who always put family first, not the woman who'd fought her way through medical school, who'd saved lives under pressure, who'd learned that sometimes the only way to heal was to cut out the infection completely. The war for my home, my identity, and my future had begun, and I was determined to win. 3 days had passed since the invasion of my home, and I developed a routine of avoidance. I left for the hospital before dawn, worked every extra shift available, and only returned when exhaustion made it unsafe to stay awake any longer. Each homecoming was an exercise in controlled fury, as I discovered new violations of my space and privacy. This particular evening, I'd managed to slip in quietly, hoping to grab some clean scrubs and escape to my room unnoticed. The house reeked of marijuana and stale pizza, and through the living room doorway I could see Ryan hadn't moved from what appeared to be his permanent indent in my couch. Empty beer cans created a fortress around him, and my coffee table was scarred with water rings and burn marks. I was halfway up the stairs when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but I answered anyway, desperate for any distraction from my current reality. Ms. Tracy Morrison. The voice was professional clipped. This is Jennifer from Pinnacle Credit Services. I'm calling about your recent application for our premium rewards card. My blood ran cold. I didn't apply for any credit card. There was a pause on the other end. I show here that you submitted an online application 3 days ago. The card was approved for a $15,000 limit and expedited shipping was requested to your home address. 3 days ago, the same day my family had ambushed me. Listen carefully, I said, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles went white. I did not apply for that card. Someone has stolen my identity. I need you to cancel it immediately and flag it as fraud. I understand your concern, ma'am. However, the card has already been activated and there have been several purchases made. The current balance is $4,342. The world tilted. I had to sit down on the stairs, my legs suddenly unable to support me. $4,000. What was purchased? I see charges for electronics primarily, several gaming systems, a high-end computer television equipment. There are also charges at various restaurants and bars, as well as cash advances totaling $1,500. Each word was another nail in the coffin of my family relationships. I knew exactly who was behind this, and the betrayal cut deeper than any scalpel I'd ever wielded. I need a complete list of all charges emailed to me immediately, I managed to say. And I'm filing a fraud report. This is identity theft. After 20 minutes of being transferred between departments and repeating my story, I finally ended the call with a case number and a promise that the fraud department would investigate. But I knew this was just the beginning. If Ryan had opened one card, there were probably others. I stormed down to the living room, no longer caring about avoiding confrontation. Ryan looked up lazily as I entered a new gaming headset around his neck that I recognized from the fraud department's list of purchases. Nice headset, I said, my voice dangerously calm. $400 at Tech World charged to a credit card opened in my name. Ring any bells? His face went through a series of expressions from surprise to calculation to finally settling on defiance. I don't know what you're talking about. I bought that with my own money. Really? And which job provided that money, Ryan? The one you haven't had in over a year. He stood up, trying to use his height advantage just like our father did. You need to chill out, Tracy. So uptight all the time. No wonder you can't keep a boyfriend. Don't change the subject. You stole my identity. You opened credit cards in my name. That's a federal crime. Prove it, he said with that same infuriating smirk. Besides, even if I did, which I didn't, we're family. Family helps each other out. You make good money. What's a few $1,000s to you? A few thousand. My voice rose despite my efforts to control it. You maxed out a $15,000 card in 3 days. 15,000. His eyes lit up with interest before he caught himself. I mean, that's crazy. Must be some mistake. My phone buzzed with another call, then another. 2 more credit card companies, both calling about suspicious activity on newly opened accounts. By the time I'd finished documenting everything Ryan had opened, 3 cards totaling $35,000 in available credit, and he'd already racked up over $15,000 in charges. I called my parents, putting them on speaker so Ryan could hear. My mother answered on the 3rd ring, her voice artificially cheerful. Tracy, darling, how are you adjusting to having your brother there? I hope you two are bonding. Your son has stolen my identity and opened 3 credit cards in my name, I said, without preamble. He's charged over $15,000 in 3 days. I'm filing police reports for identity theft and fraud. The silence on the other end lasted long enough that I checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. Finally, my father's voice came through calm and dismissive. Tracy, that's a very serious accusation. I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. Ryan would never do something like that. I have documentation from 3 credit card companies, I replied. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's a crime. My mother's voice turned sharp. Now you listen to me, young lady. Your brother has been under a lot of stress. If he made a mistake, we handle it as a family. We don't involve the authorities over family matters. A mistake, he committed identity theft. He needed things for his fresh start. She continued as if I hadn't spoken. Gaming equipment for his streaming career, a new wardrobe for job interviews. These are investments in his future. You should be supportive, not threatening him with police. Streaming career. I looked at Ryan, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. Since when is playing video games all day a career? Since people started making millions doing it, my father interjected. Ryan has a plan. He just needs some initial capital, which you can certainly afford to provide. Consider it an investment in your brother's future. An investment I didn't agree to make using credit cards I didn't open. This is insane. What's insane? My mother's voice turned cold. Is a daughter who makes 6 figures refusing to help her struggling brother. Do you know what people are saying? That we raised a selfish, money-obsessed daughter who values her bank account over blood. I don't make 6 figures, I protested for what felt like the 100th time. And even if I did, that doesn't give anyone the right to steal from me. Steal is such an ugly word, my father said. Ryan borrowed. He'll pay you back once his streaming takes off. With what credit score? I demanded. These cards are in my name. If he doesn't pay, and we both know he won't, it ruins my credit. I won't be able to refinance my house, get a car loan, anything. Then I guess you better make sure he has what he needs to succeed, my mother said smoothly. Support his streaming career, and he'll be able to pay everything back. Fight us on this, and well, who knows what could happen. Maybe more cards get opened. Maybe your credit gets so bad you lose this house you're so proud of. Then you'd have to move back home, wouldn't you? The threat was clear. This wasn't just about Ryan needing a place to stay. This was about control, about punishing me for daring to succeed on my own terms. I'm hanging up now, I said quietly, and I'm calling the police. You do that, my father said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. And we'll tell them about how you've been mentally unstable lately, working all those hours, the stress of your job. Your mother and I have been so worried. We even have texts discussing your erratic behavior. Who do you think they'll believe, a stressed-out single woman living alone or her concerned parents trying to help their children? The call ended, leaving me staring at Ryan, who was already back to his game, the stolen headset gleaming in the television's glow. You heard them, he said without looking at me. Just go with it, Tracy. Make this easy on yourself. I retreated to my room and spent the night documenting everything. Screenshots of the fraudulent charges, recordings of my calls with the credit card companies, photos of Ryan with his ill-gotten gains. But I also did something else, something that would prove crucial later. I ordered hidden cameras for every room in my house except the bathrooms. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd make sure I had evidence. The next morning, I woke to find my laptop missing from my room. My work bag, which I'd stupidly left in the kitchen, had been rifled through. My hospital ID badge was gone along with my prescription pad that I kept locked in a side pocket. Ryan was passed out on the couch, my laptop open beside him, logged into my email. He'd been trying to access my bank accounts but hadn't gotten past the 2-factor authentication. Yet. I quietly took photos of everything, including the browsing history, showing his attempts to access my financial accounts. Then I saw something that made my stomach drop. He'd been on forums discussing how to access someone's retirement accounts, how to forge power of attorney documents, how to declare someone mentally incompetent. This wasn't just about credit cards or free housing. This was about everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built. And it was just beginning. I made a decision then. I couldn't go to work with my badge missing, couldn't risk Ryan trying to access the hospital, or worse, my prescription pad privileges. I called in sick for the first time in 2 years and made an appointment with a lawyer for that afternoon. As I prepared to leave, Ryan stirred on the couch. "Where are you going?" he mumbled. "To fix the mess you've made," I replied. He laughed, a sound devoid of any humor. "Good luck with that. Mom and Dad have everything figured out. You might as well accept it. You're going to be taking care of me whether you like it or not." "We'll see about that," I said, heading for the door. "Oh, Tracy," he called after me. "Might want to check your credit report. I heard sometimes these identity thieves open more than just credit cards. Bank accounts, car loans, who knows what else they might do." The threat was clear. Every day I fought them, more damage would be done to my financial life. But what Ryan and my parents didn't understand was that I'd spent years fighting for everything I had. I'd worked 36-hour shifts as a resident, saved lives while running on no sleep, made split-second decisions that meant the difference between life and death. They thought they were breaking me. In reality, they were just revealing who they really were. And now that I knew, I could fight back properly. The cameras would arrive tomorrow. The lawyer would help me understand my options, and somewhere in their arrogance, my family would make a mistake. They always did when they got overconfident. I just had to survive until then. The lawyer's news had been devastating, but not unexpected. Because Ryan had established residency and had a rental agreement, even a forged one evicting him could take up to 90 days through proper channels. The identity theft was a criminal matter, but proving Ryan was the perpetrator and not some random hacker would require investigation. My family had covered their tracks well. I was sitting in my car outside a police station gathering courage to file a report when my phone exploded with notifications, text messages, Facebook alerts, missed calls, all flooding in at once. The first message I read was from my Aunt Helen, my mother's sister who lived in Portland. "Tracy, I'm disgusted by what I'm hearing. How can you be so heartless to your own brother? Your mother is in tears. Call me." Before I could process that, another text arrived from my cousin, Marcus. "Wow, Tracy, always thought you were one of the good ones. Guess money really does change people." Within minutes, I had over 40 messages, each more accusatory than the last. My Facebook feed was filled with cryptic posts from family members about disappointment and when family lets you down, and money can't buy class or compassion. I called Aunt Helen, my hands shaking. She answered on the first ring. "Don't you dare try to explain yourself," she began without preamble. "Your mother told me everything. That poor boy Ryan trying to get back on his feet, and you won't even give him a place to stay when you live in that mansion all by yourself." "Aunt Helen, it's not a mansion. It's a 1,500 square foot house, and they moved him in without asking. Because they knew you'd say no. My God, Tracy, when did you become so cold? Your parents said you make $500,000 a year, and you won't spare a dime for your brother." "I make $90,000, not $500,000, and he's stolen my identity, opened credit cards. Your mother warned me you'd make up lies about him." Aunt Helen cut me off. "She said the stress of your job has made you paranoid that you're seeing crimes where there's just a brother trying to online shop for job interview clothes. Really? Tracy accusing him of identity theft. Have you no shame?" The conversation went downhill from there. By the time I hung up, Aunt Helen had called me selfish, materialistic, and suggested I needed therapy for my money obsession. She ended by saying she was glad my grandparents hadn't lived to see what I'd become. The calls kept coming. Uncle Stuart, my father's brother, accused me of forgetting where I came from. My cousin Lisa posted on Facebook about how some people think they're too good for family once they get a fancy degree. Even family members I hadn't spoken to in years were reaching out to express their disappointment. But the worst call came from my grandmother. Grandma Rose was 87 years old, sharp as a tack, and the only person whose opinion truly mattered to me. She'd helped raise me when my parents were too busy with their various schemes, I now realized. She'd been at every graduation, celebrated every achievement, and told me she was proud of me more times than I could count. "Tracy, honey." Her voice was weak, trembling. "Is it true what your parents are telling me, that you've thrown Ryan out on the street?" "Grandma, no. He's living in my house right now. They moved him in without telling me." "But you're trying to evict him. Your own brother." I closed my eyes, leaning my head against the steering wheel. "Grandma, there's so much they haven't told you. He's stealing from me. They forged documents." "Your mother said you'd say that." She interrupted, and I could hear the tears in her voice. "She said the pressure of your job has changed. Made you see the worst in everyone." "Tracy, sweetheart, I know Ryan can be difficult, but he's family. Your parents just want their children to support each other. Is that so wrong?" "Grandma, they're lying to you. I have proof." "I don't want to hear about proof and documents and all that legal nonsense," she said firmly. "I want to hear that my granddaughter still has a heart, that she still remembers what I taught her about family staying together. Can you tell me that, Tracy? Can you tell me you'll work this out with your brother?" The disappointment in her voice broke something inside me. "Grandma, I love you, but you don't understand what's really happening here. What I understand is that I'm old and I won't be around forever, and the thought of my grandchildren fighting like this breaks my heart. Your mother is beside herself. She says you've become someone she doesn't recognize. All she and your father want is for Ryan to have a chance to get back on his feet. Why is that too much to ask from someone who has so much?" After she hung up, I sat in my car and cried. Not the pretty, delicate tears of movies, but ugly, chest-heaving sobs that left me gasping. They'd weaponized the one person whose opinion could destroy me, and they'd done it with surgical precision. My phone rang again. This time it was my supervisor from the hospital, Dr. Patricia Chen. "Tracy, I'm sorry to call you on your day off, but I've received some concerning communications about you." My blood ran cold. Communications. "Several emails and phone calls from family members expressing worry about your mental state. They're suggesting that work stress has caused paranoid behavior, that you're making false accusations against family members, and that you might be a danger to yourself or others. One caller even suggested we should evaluate your fitness to practice medicine." "Dr. Chen, none of that is true. My family is—" I stopped realizing how it would sound. My family is trying to destroy me. My brother stole my identity. My parents are master manipulators. It all sounded exactly like the paranoid delusions they were claiming I had. "I'm not making any judgments, Tracy," Dr. Chen said carefully. "Your work has always been exemplary. But I need to ask, is everything okay? Are you dealing with unusual stress at home?" "Yes, but not in the way they're claiming. I can explain everything." "I think it would be best if you took some time off," she interrupted gently. "Just a week or two to sort out whatever is happening. I can't have family members calling the hospital board claiming one of our doctors is mentally unstable. You understand, don't you? It's just temporary until this blows over." This. Another blow. Now they were affecting my career, the one thing I'd built entirely on my own. "Of course," I managed to say. "I understand." After ending the call, I noticed Ryan had posted a video on Instagram. He was sitting in my living room looking disheveled and sad, speaking directly to the camera. "Hey everyone, I just wanted to address some stuff that's been going on. As many of you know, I've had a tough year after losing my job. My parents. God bless them, arranged for me to stay with my sister while I get back on my feet. But it's been hard. She's made it clear I'm not welcome, and now she's making wild accusations trying to get me arrested just for existing in her space. I don't understand what happened to the sister I grew up with, but I'm praying she gets the help she needs. Mental health is so important, and I think the stress of her job has really affected her. If you're watching this, Tracy, I love you and I'm here for you when you're ready to accept help." The comments were already flooding in. People I'd gone to high school with, distant relatives, even some colleagues were expressing sympathy for Ryan and concern for my mental health. He'd turned me into the villain and himself into the victim with one 3-minute video. I finally made it into the police station, but the officer taking my report seemed skeptical from the start. When I mentioned that my family was spreading rumors about my mental stability, I saw his expression shift. Every additional detail I provided seemed to confirm in his mind that I was the unstable one. He took my report, but I could tell it would sit in a pile somewhere uninvestigated. By the time I got home, the house was full of people. My parents had invited what looked like half our extended family for an intervention. They sat in my living room on my furniture eating food from my kitchen, all looking at me with a mixture of pity and concern. "Tracy, sweetheart, come sit down," my mother said, patting the spot next to her on my own couch. "We're all here because we love you and we're worried about you." "Get out of my house," I said quietly. "All of you." "You see," my father said to the assembled group, "this is what we've been dealing with. Hostile, paranoid, making accusations. Tracy, you need help. What I need is for you to stop spreading lies about me and get out of my house." "There she goes again," Ryan said sadly from his spot in my favorite armchair. "It's been like this for days. I'm honestly scared to be alone with her sometimes." My cousin Janet, who I'd always been close to, stood up and approached me. "Tracy, we're not judging you. Everyone goes through tough times, but you need to admit you need help. This jealousy toward Ryan, these false accusations, it's not healthy." Jealousy. I laughed, but it sounded hysterical even to my own ears. He stole my identity. He's opened credit cards in my name. Or, my mother said gently, as if speaking to a child, "You opened those cards yourself during a manic episode and now you don't remember. The doctor said that can happen with stress-induced psychosis." "What doctor?" I demanded. "The one I consulted about your behavior," she replied smoothly. "He said accusatory behavior and false memories are common symptoms." They'd thought of everything. Every truth I tried to tell had been preemptively countered with a lie. Every piece of evidence I had was explained away as a delusion. They'd created an alternate narrative where I was the problem, and they'd spread it so effectively that everyone believed it. The intervention lasted 2 hours. Person after person stood up to share their concerns about my behavior, my obvious mental health crisis, my cruel treatment of poor Ryan. By the end, I was exhausted, outnumbered, and starting to question my own reality. After everyone left, my parents lingered. My mother approached me with what looked like genuine concern. "Tracy, we can make all this go away," she said softly. "Just sign the family support agreement. Accept that Ryan needs your help. Stop all this nonsense about police and lawyers. The family will see that you've come to your senses. Your job won't be in jeopardy, and we can all move forward together. All I have to do is let you steal everything from me," I said flatly. "All you have to do is be the daughter we raised you to be," my father corrected. "Family first, Tracy. Always family first." They left me alone in my house that wasn't really mine anymore, surrounded by the remnants of their intervention. Paper plates with half-eaten food cups everywhere, the lingering smell of too many people in too small a space. Ryan had disappeared into the guest room during the chaos, and I could hear him on a call, probably spinning more lies to gather more sympathy. I cleaned mechanically, trying to process everything that had happened. In a single day, they'd turned my entire extended family against me, jeopardized my career, painted me as mentally unstable, and created a narrative where I was the villain in my own story. The expertise with which they'd executed this campaign was terrifying. As I loaded the dishwasher with glasses my relatives had used while discussing my mental health, I remembered something Dr. Chen had said during my residency. The most dangerous patients aren't the ones who come in raving. They're the ones who smile while they poison you. My family was poisoning me slowly and methodically with a smile on their faces and concern in their voices. But understanding what was happening and stopping it were two very different things. They had the advantage of numbers of years of manipulation experience, of a complete lack of conscience. But I had something they didn't expect. The hidden cameras had been delivered while I was out, left in a package on my doorstep. Tonight, while Ryan slept off whatever he'd been drinking at the intervention, I would install them. I would document everything. They thought they'd broken me today. They thought the intervention, the family pressure, the threat to my job would make me crumble. They thought wrong. I was done being defensive. It was time to go on the offensive. And unlike them, I would be armed with the truth. The cameras had been installed for 3 days, and they were already proving their worth. I'd captured Ryan going through my mail, my parents discussing their Phase 2 plans in my kitchen while I was at work, and most importantly, Ryan practicing what he called his performance piece for something big he had planned. I didn't know what it was yet, but the way he rehearsed, holding his chest and groaning, made my stomach turn with dread. I'd returned to work after my forced mental health break, though Dr. Chen was watching me carefully and I'd been relegated to less critical cases. My colleagues treated me with the kind of careful politeness reserved for someone they thought might snap at any moment. The rumor mill had been working overtime, fed by my family's strategic calls and emails. It was Thursday afternoon when everything escalated to a new level of destruction. I was reviewing patient charts in the break room when Dr. Margaret Wilson burst in her face, flushed with concern. "Tracy, your brother's in the ER. He's asking for you. Says it's serious." My first instinct was to ignore it. After everything Ryan had put me through, I couldn't muster any concern for whatever game he was playing. But Margaret was already ushering me toward the emergency department, and refusing would only add to the heartless sister narrative my family had crafted. The scene in the ER was pure theater. Ryan was on a gurney clutching his chest dramatically while groaning loud enough for the entire floor to hear. Several nurses were attending to him, and I noticed with growing alarm that many of my colleagues had gathered to watch. "Tracy." Ryan gasped when he saw me reaching out with a trembling hand. "Thank God you're here. The pain, it's unbearable. I think I'm having a heart attack." "When did this start?" Dr. Kevin Marshall asked, already ordering an EKG. "About an hour ago." Ryan panted. "I was so stressed about my living situation, about how my sister treats me. She threw out my medication this morning, said I was faking my anxiety. The stress just built up and then crushing pain." I hadn't thrown out anything. I hadn't even seen him that morning, leaving before dawn specifically to avoid him. But every medical professional in hearing distance was now looking at me with judgment. "I didn't throw out any medication," I said firmly. "I haven't spoken to him in 3 days." "The stress of her denial," Ryan whispered to the nurse closest to him, loud enough for everyone to hear. "She doesn't even remember doing it. That's what scares me most about her condition." Dr. Marshall, who I'd worked with for 3 years, wouldn't even meet my eyes. "Let's focus on the patient, Dr. Morrison." The EKG came back normal. Blood work showed no cardiac enzymes. The chest X-ray was clear. Every test confirmed what I already knew Ryan was faking. But he was good at it, maintaining just enough symptoms to warrant continued observation. "The pain comes in waves," he explained to the growing audience. "My therapist says it's panic attacks brought on by domestic stress, living with someone who resents you, who threatens you daily, who's tried to poison your food." "Poison?" Dr. Marshall's eyebrows shot up. "Oh, she probably didn't mean to—" Ryan backpedaled with practiced skill. "She's not well. Last week she put something in my coffee that made me violently ill. When I confronted her, she laughed and said it was just expired milk, but I know what spoiled milk tastes like. This was something else." The lies flowed so smoothly, each one building on the last, creating a picture of me as an unhinged, dangerous person. I watched my colleagues' faces change, saw the suspicion growing in their eyes. These people who had trusted me with lives were now wondering if I was capable of poisoning my own brother. "Ryan, stop lying," I said, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. "You know none of that happened." He clutched his chest harder, the monitors showing a slight uptick in heart rate that he'd probably caused by holding his breath. "See, even now, when I'm in pain, she attacks me. This is what I live with every day. The verbal abuse, the gaslighting, the threats." "Has he been evaluated by psych—" I asked Dr. Marshall, trying to bring some medical rationality to the situation. "Are you suggesting your brother is mentally ill?" Dr. Marshall's tone was sharp. "That seems inappropriate, Dr. Morrison, given your relationship and the circumstances." Before I could respond, Ryan's performance reached new heights. "I need to tell someone," he said, tears now streaming down his face. "I'm scared of her. Last night I heard her on the phone talking about making me disappear. She has access to drugs here, knows how to make things look natural. I'm terrified to eat anything she's touched, to take any medication she might have tampered with." The emergency department fell silent. Even the usual chaos of medical care seemed to pause as everyone processed this accusation. A doctor potentially planning to murder her brother, using hospital resources to do it. "That's enough." Dr. Chen's voice cut through the silence. She'd appeared from nowhere, her expression unreadable. "Dr. Morrison, my office. Now." As I followed her out, I heard Ryan call after me. "I'm sorry, Tracy. I didn't want to tell anyone, but I'm just so scared. Please get help. I love you despite everything." The walk to Dr. Chen's office felt like a funeral march. Staff members stepped aside as we passed some whispering others just staring. By the time we reached her office, I knew my medical career was hanging by a thread. Sit, Dr. Chen commanded, closing the door firmly behind us. Tracy, what the hell is going on? He's lying, I said simply. Every word out of his mouth is a calculated lie designed to destroy my reputation and make me unemployable. And why would he do that? I explained everything. The forged rental agreement, the stolen identity, the credit cards, the orchestrated family intervention. Dr. Chen listened without interruption, her expression grave. Do you have proof of any of this? She asked when I finished. I have recordings from security cameras I installed in my home. They show Ryan and my parents discussing their plans to discredit me and force me to support him financially. I have documentation of the fraudulent credit cards, the forged signatures. Tracy, I want to believe you, Dr. Chen interrupted. Your work here has been exemplary, but you have to understand how this looks. Your brother is in our ER claiming you've threatened him, possibly poisoned him, and multiple family members have contacted the hospital about your mental state. Now you're telling me about hidden cameras and conspiracy theories? They're not theories, I protested. I have actual evidence. Then you need to get a lawyer and handle this through proper channels, she said firmly. But right now I have to think about the hospital's liability. A doctor accused of plotting to murder a family member, even if false, is a serious matter. I'm placing you on administrative leave, effective immediately. The words hit like a physical blow. Patricia, please. This is exactly what they want. They're destroying my life piece by piece, and you're helping them do it. Her expression softened slightly. I'm trying to protect you, Tracy. If you're on leave, you can focus on resolving this situation. Get your lawyer, compile your evidence, clear your name. But you can't do that while working here with your brother, staging dramatic scenes in our ER. He's probably not even going to be admitted, I pointed out. All his tests are normal because he's faking everything. Which is exactly why you can't be the one to point that out, she replied. Any observation you make about his condition will be seen as biased at best, malicious at worst. Go home, Tracy. Sort this out. When you can prove what you're saying, we'll discuss your return. I gathered my things in a daze, aware of eyes following me through the hospital. In the parking lot, I found Ryan standing by my car, miraculously recovered from his heart attack. They discharged me, he said cheerfully. Panic attack, they said, brought on by domestic stress. They gave me some pamphlets about recognizing signs of abuse and resources for victims. You're destroying my life, I said quietly. My career, my reputation, everything I've worked for. Why? Because you have everything and I have nothing, he replied, the mask dropping completely. You got the brains, the ambition, the success. What did I get? Parents who compared me to you every damn day. Why can't you be more like Tracy? Tracy would never drop out of college. Tracy would never lose a job. Well, now perfect Tracy is learning what it feels like to lose everything. So this is about revenge, jealousy. This is about balance, he corrected. You've had your turn at the top. Now it's mine. And the beautiful part is the more you fight, the crazier you look. Every accusation you make just proves how paranoid you are. Every piece of evidence you present looks like the desperate fabrication of a disturbed mind. The cameras caught everything, I warned. Your whole performance practice, mom and dad's planning sessions, all of it. His smile widened. You mean the hidden cameras you secretly installed in the house where I legally live, the ones you're using to spy on your family? Yeah, that doesn't sound creepy or unstable at all. I'm sure everyone will see that as the behavior of a rational person. He was right. They'd turned even my evidence into proof of my instability. Every move I made to defend myself only tightened the noose they'd placed around my neck. Oh, before I forget, Ryan added, pulling out his phone, I should probably mention that I've been in contact with several medical malpractice attorneys. They're very interested in hearing about a doctor who's been making threats against a patient. Even if nothing comes of it, the investigation alone should keep you out of medicine for a good long while. I never threatened you. That's not what witnesses heard today. Amazing how memory works, isn't it? People tend to remember what fits the narrative they've been given, and thanks to Mom and Dad's groundwork, everyone's primed to see you as the unstable, dangerous one. Even your colleagues are starting to wonder what else you might be capable of. He walked away, leaving me standing in the parking lot of the hospital where I'd built my career, my reputation, my identity. In less than 2 weeks, my family had systematically destroyed my relationship with extended family, my standing at work, and my credibility as a professional, and we were just getting started. But as I drove home, something Ryan said stuck with me. He'd mentioned Mom and Dad's planning sessions, which meant he knew about the cameras. If he knew and wasn't worried, what did that mean? What were they planning that they were so confident about? I was about to find out that my family's ambitions went far beyond free housing and credit card fraud. The workplace disaster was just another step in a much larger plan. And despite all my evidence, all my preparation, I was playing catch-up to a game where they'd written all the rules. The war for my life was escalating, and I was running out of moves. But I still had one advantage they didn't know about Aunt Patricia, my father's estranged sister, who'd been mysteriously absent from the family intervention. She'd sent me a single text that day. "Don't trust anyone. Call me when you're ready to fight back." It was time to make that call. The law office of Brennan and Associates was located in a gleaming downtown tower, all marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows that made me feel small and out of place in my wrinkled scrubs. I'd driven straight there after leaving the hospital, Patricia's text burning in my mind. But first, I needed professional legal advice. James Brennan was nothing like the aggressive bulldog lawyer I'd expected. Soft-spoken, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, he listened to my story without interruption, occasionally jotting notes in precise handwriting. When I finished, he set down his pen and delivered the news I'd been dreading. "Ms. Morrison, I'll be frank with you. Your situation is legally complex and frankly quite sophisticated in its construction. Your family has created what we call a legal maze. Multiple overlapping issues that make any single action difficult. But surely the forged rental agreement is enough to start eviction proceedings immediately." He shook his head slowly. "Unfortunately, no. Your brother has established what appears to be legitimate tenancy. He receives mail there has a driver's license listing your address and has been residing there for several weeks now. The forged signature on the rental agreement is concerning, yes, but proving forgery requires handwriting experts' documentation and time. Meanwhile, he remains a legal tenant. Even though I never agreed to it, the law tends to favor established residents to prevent homelessness," he explained. "In this state, eviction proceedings for a month-to-month tenant require 30 days' notice. Then if they don't leave you file for eviction, wait for a court date, which could be another 30 to 60 days out, and then even if you win, the sheriff needs to schedule the actual eviction. Best case scenario, you're looking at 90 days. Worst case, if he fights it and claims hardship, 6 months or more." 6 months. The number hit me like a physical blow. 6 more months of Ryan in my house, stealing from me, destroying my life piece by piece. What about the identity theft, the credit cards? That's a criminal matter, and you were right to file a police report. However, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Proving your brother was the one who opened those accounts can be challenging. He lives in your home, has access to your mail, potentially your personal documents. A good defense attorney could argue you gave him permission and are now reneging, or that someone else entirely is responsible. But I have him on camera talking about it. Brennan leaned forward, interest sparked. "Tell me about these cameras." I explained about the hidden cameras, the conversations I'd captured Ryan's admission of his plans. As I spoke, Brennan's expression grew increasingly concerned. "Ms. Morrison, I need to ask, did you inform your brother he was being recorded?" "No, of course not. He wouldn't have said those things if he knew. This state requires 2-party consent for recording," he said gently. "Any audio recordings you made without his knowledge are not only inadmissible in court, but could actually result in criminal charges against you for illegal surveillance." The room spun. Every step I'd taken to protect myself was being turned against me. So I can't use any of it. Video without audio might be permissible since he's in common areas of your home, but it's a gray area given his tenant status. The audio is definitely out. And if your family learns about these recordings, they could use it as further evidence of your, he consulted his notes, alleged paranoid behavior. This is insane, I said, fighting back tears of frustration. They're destroying my life and the law is protecting them. The law is neutral, Brennan corrected. Your family is simply using it more effectively, which brings me to my biggest concern. He pulled out a fresh legal pad. Tell me about your parents' involvement. You mentioned they had keys. I explained about the emergency key, how they'd used it to move Ryan in their threats and manipulations. Brennan took detailed notes, his frown deepening with each detail. Your parents' actions could constitute conspiracy to commit fraud, but again, proving it is challenging. They'll claim they were trying to help both their children, that they believed you'd verbally agreed to help Ryan, that any documents were misunderstandings rather than deliberate forgery. So they get away with it. Not necessarily, but we need to be strategic. Tell me about your workplace situation. I recounted the disaster at the hospital, Ryan's performance, my administrative leave. Brennan's expression turned grave. This is actually the most concerning development. Your family isn't just after money or housing. They're systematically destroying your ability to earn. Without your medical career, you lose your primary income source, potentially your ability to pay your mortgage and your professional identity. It's quite thorough. You sound almost admiring, I said bitterly. Not admiring, but recognizing the sophistication. This isn't a simple family squabble or opportunistic relatives. This is coordinated, planned, and executed with precision, which makes me wonder. He studied me carefully. Has your family done anything like this before? The question sparked a memory from the cameras. I overheard them mention something about my father's uncle and my mother's sister, something about getting money from them in the past. We need to investigate that. Pattern behavior could establish intent and conspiracy. But Ms. Morrison, I need you to understand something. Your family has a significant head start. They've established narratives, created documentation, and most importantly, they've isolated you from support systems. Fighting this will be expensive, time-consuming, and emotionally draining. What are my options? Option 1, capitulate. Give them what they want, sign their agreement, support your brother. You'll lose money but might salvage your career and relationships. Never. I didn't think so. Option 2, fight everything simultaneously. File for eviction, pursue identity theft charges, sue for defamation regarding your workplace issues, seek restraining orders. This is expensive and plays into their narrative of you being unstable and litigious. And option 3, we play the long game. Document everything legally. Build a case slowly and methodically. Accept that you'll take losses in the short term to win in the long run. And most importantly, find allies who can corroborate your version of events. I might have one, I said, thinking of Patricia. My aunt, my father's sister. She's been estranged from the family for years. Excellent. Estranged family members often have valuable insights. Now let's discuss immediate practical matters. First, you need to secure your remaining assets. I recommend opening new bank accounts at a different institution, getting a post office box for sensitive mail, and placing fraud alerts on all your credit reports. Already done, I said, feeling a small spark of pride at having taken some correct steps. Good. Next, change all passwords, enable two-factor authentication on everything, and assume any device or account your family has had access to is compromised. Get a new phone if necessary. New email addresses for anything sensitive. He continued outlining security measures, each one driving home how thoroughly my life had been invaded. As he spoke, his assistant knocked and entered, handing him a note. His expression darkened as he read it. Ms. Morrison, have you checked your credit report today? Not since yesterday. You should know that 3 new accounts have been opened in your name in the last 24 hours, 2 more credit cards, and a car loan for $45,000. The blood drained from my face. $45,000 for what? According to this, a BMW M4. The loan was approved yesterday afternoon and the car was purchased this morning from a dealership in Riverside. While I'd been dealing with Ryan's hospital performance, he'd been escalating the fraud. Can we stop it? Report it? We can try, but if he has the car and the paperwork shows your signature, it becomes more complicated. The dealership will claim they acted in good faith. The loan company will want their money, and proving you didn't sign when the signatures match. He trailed off, the implications clear. He's not just stealing money, I realized. He's creating so much debt in my name that I'll be forced to sell my house to pay it off. And then where would I go? Presumably back to your parents' home, Brennan said quietly, where they would have complete control over you and your remaining assets. The full scope of their plan finally crystallized. This wasn't about supporting Ryan or family helping family. This was about completely destroying my independence, forcing me back under their control, and likely draining every penny I'd earned or saved along the way. There's something else. Brennan continued, his voice careful. The timing of that car purchase right when you were distracted at the hospital. The escalation of credit accounts immediately after you involved law enforcement. Your family is adapting quickly to your counter moves. They're staying one step ahead. You think they have help or experience? You mentioned they might have done this before. Ms. Morrison, I think we need to consider the possibility that your family has made a living out of this kind of fraud. The sophistication, the psychological manipulation, the legal knowledge, these aren't amateur moves. So what do I do? First, you hire me officially. He slid a retainer agreement across the desk. Second, we hire a private investigator to look into your parents' history. Third, you contact that aunt immediately. And fourth, you prepare yourself for war, because that's what this is. I signed the agreement, wrote a check that represented a significant portion of my savings, and felt a mix of relief and terror. Relief that someone finally believed me, understood the scope of what I was facing. Terror at how much worse things were than I'd imagined. One more thing, Brennan said as I prepared to leave. Your brother's hospital stunt today. That wasn't random. Creating a scene at your workplace, getting you suspended, it serves multiple purposes. It supports their narrative of your instability, removes you from your support network, and gives them more time to operate without your interference. Expect more theatrical performances, and expect them to escalate. How could it get worse? In my experience, Ms. Morrison, when family members are willing to destroy your career and steal your identity, there's very little they won't do. Be very careful. Consider staying somewhere else for a while. He's in my house. I'm not letting him drive me from my own home. Then upgrade your security. Cameras are good, but make sure you have locks he can't access. Document any threats, even veiled ones. And Ms. Morrison, if at any point you feel physically unsafe, don't hesitate. Call the police immediately. I left his office with a legal strategy, but also with a deeper understanding of my situation. This wasn't a family dispute that had gotten out of hand. This was a calculated assault on every aspect of my life by people who'd apparently done it before and gotten away with it. As I drove home, my new burner phone rang. Patricia's name appeared on the screen. Tracy, I heard about what happened at the hospital. We need to meet. Tonight. What I have to tell you about your parents, it's worse than you know, and we don't have much time. They're planning something big, and once they pull it off, fighting back will be impossible. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop in an hour. As I hung up, I noticed a BMW M4 in my driveway, bright red and gleaming in the afternoon sun. Ryan was standing beside it, keys in hand, talking to someone on the phone. Yeah, she just pulled up, I heard him say as I got out of my car. No, she can't do anything about it. I made sure of that. He turned to me with a triumphant smile. Nice car, right? I figured if you're going to destroy your credit anyway with these wild accusations, might as well get something nice out of it. I walked past him without a word, but he followed. By the way, Mom and Dad are coming for dinner. They want to discuss your situation and see if we can work out something that doesn't involve you losing everything. You should listen to them, Tracy. This is your last chance to make things easy on yourself. Inside, I found my parents already in my kitchen, my mother cooking at my stove while my father sat at my table reviewing documents. The violation of my space was so complete, so casual, that I felt something break inside me. But I remembered Brennan's words, play the long game, document everything. And so I said nothing, just walked to my room and locked the door. I had an hour before meeting Patricia, an hour to prepare for learning just how deep this conspiracy went. The war for my life was escalating, but for the first time, I wasn't fighting alone. I had a lawyer who understood the game, an aunt who knew the players, and most importantly, the growing certainty that my family had underestimated one crucial thing. They thought breaking me professionally and financially would destroy me. They didn't understand that every attack was forging me into someone stronger, someone who could fight as dirty as they could, someone who could play the long game too. The consultation had shown me the battlefield. Now it was time to learn about my enemies. The coffee shop Patricia had chosen was 40 minutes outside the city, a deliberate choice she explained when I arrived. "Your parents have been keeping tabs on you," she said without preamble as I slid into the booth across from her. "They probably know about the lawyer, definitely know about your credit monitoring, but they don't know we're in contact." Patricia looked older than her 68 years stress lines carved deep around her eyes and mouth. But those eyes were sharp, alert, missing nothing, as she pulled a thick manila folder from her bag. "Before we begin, show me your phone." I placed my new burner phone on the table. She examined it carefully, then nodded approval. "Good. Leave it on the table. They might have found a way to activate it remotely." She pulled out what looked like a small radio and turned it on. Static filled the air between us. White noise generator, just in case. "Patricia, what is all this? You're acting like we're in a spy movie." "That's because you don't yet understand who your parents really are," she said grimly. "Tracy, what do you know about your family's history? Your grandparents, where the money came from?" Dad always said Grandpa Morrison had successful investments. Mom's family had some property in California that they sold. Patricia laughed bitterly. Successful investments. Is that what they call it now? She opened the folder and spread out newspaper clippings, legal documents photos. "Your grandfather Morrison died penniless in a state nursing home after your parents drained every cent he had. The property your mother's family owned, they stole it from her elderly aunt using forged power of attorney documents." I stared at the evidence before me, newspaper clippings from 20 years ago with headlines like, "Elderly man claims children stole life savings," and "Family dispute leaves widow homeless." "This can't be right," I whispered, but even as I said it, pieces were clicking into place. The way we'd moved frequently when I was young, the family members who'd suddenly stopped visiting, the whispered arguments I'd overheard but never understood. "Your parents are professional con artists, Tracy, have been for over 30 years. They target family members because family is less likely to press charges, more likely to keep quiet out of shame. They've refined their technique over the decades, and you, my dear, are their masterpiece." "What do you mean?" Patricia pulled out another document. 20 years ago, they tried something similar with me. Moved their friend into my house, claimed I'd agreed to it, started the same whisper campaign about my mental health. But I was a lawyer, knew my rights, and more importantly, I didn't have a trusting nature. I fought back hard and fast, got restraining orders, pressed charges. They backed off, but not before stealing $40,000 from me. "If you knew all this, why didn't you warn me?" "I tried," she said softly. "When you graduated medical school, I sent you a letter. When you bought your house, I tried calling. Each time your parents intercepted. They told the family I was mentally ill, dangerous, that I'd tried to hurt them. Sound familiar?" The pattern was sickeningly clear. They used the same playbook every time, with refinements. They learned from their mistakes with me. This time, they moved slower, built more credibility, created more documentation, and they chose their victim more carefully. You're successful enough to be worth targeting, but isolated enough to be vulnerable. No spouse, no children, few close friends because you work so much. Perfect. What about Ryan? Ryan's been their apprentice since he was 16. That job he lost, he was fired for embezzling. The company didn't press charges because your parents paid back some of the money and threatened to sue for wrongful termination. His whole unemployed act. He's been working with them full-time, learning the trade. She pulled out more documents, case files, court records, financial statements. My parents had left a trail of destruction across 3 states, always moving on before consequences caught up, always targeting family or close friends who could be emotionally manipulated into silence. Here's the Aunt Margaret situation, Patricia continued. Your mother's sister. They convinced her to co-sign business loans for a fake company. When the loans defaulted, Margaret lost her house. She lives in a tiny apartment now, too ashamed to tell anyone what happened. And Uncle Carl, your father's older brother. They got power of attorney when he had surgery, emptied his accounts while he was recovering. He died thinking he'd somehow lost his own money to bad investments. Each revelation was another blow. How many victims? That I know of, at least 12 family members over the years, probably more. They're careful, usually take just enough to hurt, but not enough to trigger major investigations. Except with you. Why am I different? Patricia leaned forward. Because you're their retirement plan. They're getting older, Ryan's not as smart as they'd hoped, and they need one big score to set themselves up permanently. Your house, your income, your credit. You're worth more to them than all their previous victims combined. But if you know all this, have all this evidence, why haven't they been arrested? Because they're smart about jurisdiction. They never hit the same state twice in a row. Because family victims rarely press charges. Because they're very, very good at making their victims look unstable, unreliable. Look what they've done to you in just 2 weeks. I thought about my suspended medical license, my family turning against me, the narrative of mental illness they'd crafted. The hospital incident today that was planned. Everything is planned. Tracy, I need you to understand something. The BMW Ryan bought. That wasn't impulsive. They know you'll have to report it stolen to avoid the payments, but when you do, he'll produce documents showing you gave him permission. Security footage from the dealership will show him calmly purchasing it, not the behavior of someone committing fraud. It's another trap. So what do I do? Patricia pulled out the last set of documents from her folder. Fight smarter, not harder. I've spent 20 years documenting their crimes, tracking their victims, building a case. But I needed someone current. Someone they were actively targeting who could provide fresh evidence. You're that person. The cameras I installed are probably already compromised. They knew you'd install them, probably even expected it. Check your footage carefully. I guarantee key conversations are missing or corrupted. My heart sank. Then how do I prove anything? By understanding their end game and getting ahead of it. Their pattern is always the same in the final phase. They create a crisis that forces their victim to sign over major assets. With previous victims, it was medical emergencies, fake debts, threatened lawsuits. With you, with me, they're going for guardianship, complete control over your assets, your medical decisions, your life, the mental health narrative, the workplace incidents, the family testimony. It's all building toward having you declared incompetent. The room spun. They can't do that. I'm a doctor. I'm clearly competent. Are you? According to the narrative they've built, you're paranoid delusional, making false accusations, potentially violent. You've been suspended from work. You're claiming wild conspiracies about your family. You've installed hidden cameras to spy on people. A sympathetic judge, especially one who hears from a dozen concerned family members. This is insane. No, it's brilliant. Evil, but brilliant. Once they have guardianship, they can sell your house, drain your accounts, make medical decisions for you. You could spend years fighting it, and meanwhile, they control everything. So how do I stop them? Patricia smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. By beating them at their own game. I have contacts at the FBI who've been very interested in interstate fraud cases. But we need current evidence proof of the pattern. Your situation could be the key to bringing them down, but we have to move fast. The FBI won't that escalate things. Tracy, things are already escalated. While you were at your lawyer's office today, your parents filed paperwork with the county. I have a contact there who alerted me. They're seeking an emergency psychiatric evaluation for you, claiming you're a danger to yourself and others. If they get it, you could be held for 72 hours, and during that time, they'll ransack everything I finished. Take whatever they want, probably manufacture more evidence of my instability. Exactly. We have maybe 48 hours before a judge rules on their petition. We need to strike first. What about Ryan's testimony? He lives there, he'll say whatever they want. Patricia's expression hardened. Ryan's their weakness. He's arrogant, sloppy. Your parents are careful, but Ryan likes to brag. Get him talking, stroke his ego, and he'll confess everything. But you need witnesses, and they need to be unimpeachable. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. Not everyone. Your lawyer believes you. I believe you. And I think once we present the pattern show, the history others will too. But we need Ryan on record admitting to the fraud, and we need it fast. She pulled out a business card. This is Special Agent David Chen, FBI Financial Crimes Division. He's expecting your call. He's been tracking your parents for 3 years, but never had enough for a solid case. Your situation changes that. What if they find out I'm working with the FBI? Then they'll accelerate their timeline, make mistakes. Desperate people always do. But Tracy, I need you to understand the risks. Your parents have never been cornered before. When they realize the walls are closing in, they may become dangerous. Not physically. That's not their style. But they'll pull every emotional manipulation, every dirty trick they know. I took the card feeling the weight of what I was about to do. What's their biggest weakness? Greed, Patricia said without hesitation. They always want more than they should take. With you, they could have settled for free rent for Ryan, maybe some spending money. But they want everything, and that greed makes them vulnerable. That and their absolute certainty that family loyalty will protect them in the end. They genuinely believe their victims won't follow through with prosecution because family doesn't betray family. They're wrong. I know. But Tracy, prepare yourself. When this comes out, the family will splinter. Some will believe you, others never will. You'll lose relationships, maybe permanently. Are you ready for that? I thought about Grandma Rose, about the cousins I'd grown up with, the aunts and uncles who'd been at every birthday. Then I thought about the hospital, my suspension, my stolen identity, my invaded home. I already lost them when they believed I was crazy. At least this way I get the truth out there. Patricia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Your grandfather would be proud. He saw through them at the end, tried to warn people, but by then they'd already painted him as senile. Don't let them do the same to you. We spent another hour going through the evidence, planning next steps. Patricia gave me copies of everything, told me to hide them somewhere my family couldn't access. She also gave me a recording device disguised as a pen, explaining that while secret recordings might not be admissible in court, they could direct the FBI investigation. As we prepared to leave, Patricia grabbed my arm. One more thing. The man your mother was on the phone with earlier today, I recognize the name. He's a psychiatrist who lost his license for taking bribes to provide false diagnoses. If they're bringing him in, they're going to try to have me committed. Within the week, I'd guess. Be very careful, Tracy. Don't give them any ammunition. No emotional outbursts, no confrontations. Play the perfect stable daughter while we build our case. I drove home in darkness, the weight of Patricia's revelations crushing. My entire life had been built on lies, my family, a criminal enterprise that had destroyed dozens of lives. And I was next on their list. But as I pulled into my driveway past Ryan's stolen BMW, I felt something shift inside me. Fear transformed into determination. They'd made one crucial error in targeting me. They'd assumed I was weak, isolated, controllable. They didn't realize that the same drive that got me through medical school, that let me save lives under pressure, that built my career from nothing, was now focused entirely on stopping them. The hunter was about to become the hunted, and thanks to Patricia, I finally understood both the game and the players. The real fight was about to begin. I spent the night after meeting Patricia in a state of hypervigilance, organizing the evidence she'd given me into a hidden safe deposit box I'd rented across town. Every sound in the house made me jump, wondering if this was the moment my parents would escalate their plans. But the morning came quietly, with only the sound of Ryan snoring from the guest room breaking the silence. Following Patricia's advice, I played the perfect daughter. I made breakfast, left a plate for Ryan, and even sent my mother a text asking if she needed anything from the store. Her response was immediate and saccharine. "Just your happiness, sweetheart. Dad and I worry so much about you." I was reviewing the FBI agent's contact information when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw 2 police officers standing on my porch. My heart hammered as I opened the door. "Dr. Tracy Morrison," the older officer asked. "Yes. We're here to serve you with a temporary restraining order. You're required to vacate these premises immediately and maintain a distance of 500 feet from Ryan Morrison." The paper trembled in my hands as I read it. According to the document Ryan had filed for protection, claiming I'd physically assaulted him, threatened his life, and created a hostile living environment. There were photos attached. Ryan with bruises on his arms and face, a sworn statement from my parents, who claimed to have witnessed me attacking him. "This is impossible," I said. "I haven't touched him. I haven't even spoken to him in days." The younger officer looked sympathetic but firm. "Ma'am, we're just here to serve the papers and ensure you collect your immediate necessities. You'll have a chance to contest this at the hearing in 7 days. 7 days, but this is my house. The alleged victim resides here legally," the older officer stated. "Until the hearing, you need to find alternative accommodation. You have 15 minutes to gather essentials. We'll supervise." I moved through my house in a daze, grabbing clothes, toiletries, my laptop, the recording pen Patricia had given me. Ryan emerged from the guest room wearing a robe I recognized as mine, sporting dramatic bruises that looked like they'd been painted on by a Hollywood makeup artist. "I'm sorry it came to this, Tracy," he said loud enough for the officers to hear. "But after last night's attack, I just don't feel safe. I hope you get the help you need." Last night, when I'd been with Patricia 40 minutes away, but I couldn't say that without revealing our meeting. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. The officers escorted me out of my own home. As I loaded my car, I noticed neighbors watching from windows and driveways. Ryan stood in the doorway, visible injuries on full display, playing the victim perfectly. My parents' car pulled up just as I was leaving, their timing too perfect to be coincidental. I drove to a hotel, my hands shaking with rage and disbelief. In my room, I called James Brennan, my lawyer. "They filed first," he said after I explained. "It's a common tactic. Now you look retaliatory if you file your own restraining order. The photos of injuries, your parents as witnesses. They've created compelling evidence." But I wasn't even home. I was meeting with... I caught myself. Patricia's warning about revealing our connection echoed in my mind. "Meeting with who?" Brennan prompted. "A friend, but I can't involve them. Not yet." "Tracy, if you have an alibi, we need to use it. Otherwise, this restraining order could become permanent. You understand what that means. You can't go home. Ryan essentially gets your house by default." "I know, but trust me. Revealing this person now would put a larger investigation at risk. Can we fight this without them?" Brennan sighed. "We can try. But Tracy, they're playing chess while you're still learning the rules. This restraining order serves multiple purposes. It gets you out of the house, supports their mental instability narrative, and makes you look violent. Judges take these very seriously. What about the bruises? Can we demand a medical examination?" "We can, but by the hearing, they'll likely have faded. Conveniently timed, I'm sure." I hung up feeling more trapped than ever. But then I remembered something. The hidden cameras. If they were still working, they might have captured Ryan creating his fake injuries. I logged into the cloud storage from my laptop, my heart sinking as I scrolled through the footage. Hours of video were missing or corrupted just as Patricia had predicted. But then I found it. A clear video from 2 nights ago showing Ryan in the bathroom with what looked like theatrical makeup carefully applying bruises to his arms. He was on the phone laughing. "Yeah, Mom, it looks totally real," he said clearly. "Tracy's gonna lose it when the cops show up. Nah, she's been at work all day, hasn't seen me setting this up." I had him. The video was time-stamped during a period when I was verifiably at the hospital. But as I saved the file, preparing to send it to Brennan, my laptop screen went black. Then a message appeared. "Nice try, sis. Did you really think we didn't know about the cameras, by the way? Check your cloud storage again." I refreshed the page. Everything was gone. Every video, every file deleted. Ryan had somehow accessed my system and wiped it all. The only evidence I had was the copy I'd just saved locally, but without the cloud backup to verify its authenticity, who would believe it wasn't fabricated? My phone rang. Ryan. "Hey, Tracy, how's the hotel? I bet it's not as nice as your house. Well, my house now, I guess." "You can't do this," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Already did. And before you try to use that video you just saved, you should know I've already prepared my defense. Poor mentally ill Tracy, so desperate she's creating deep fake videos to frame her innocent brother. I mean, who's going to believe that I sat in a bathroom applying fake bruises while conveniently narrating my evil plan? Sounds pretty far-fetched, doesn't it?" He was right. It did sound unbelievable. Every piece of evidence I had sounded like the elaborate fantasy of a delusional person when taken out of context. "Oh, and Tracy, Mom and Dad wanted me to tell you something. That psychiatrist friend of theirs, Dr. Hoffman, he's very concerned about you. So concerned that he's willing to testify at the restraining order hearing about your mental state. Based on his observations and the family's reports, of course. Never mind that he's never actually met you. That's fraud. He can't diagnose someone he's never examined. He's not diagnosing, just sharing his professional concerns based on reported behavior. Totally legal, totally devastating to your credibility. But hey, there's still a way out of this. Mom and Dad are willing to drop everything, even let you back in the house if you just sign a few papers. Power of attorney, some financial authorizations, nothing major. Go to hell, Ryan. Already there, sis. It's got great heating and your Netflix password. I hung up and immediately called the FBI contact Patricia had given me. Special Agent David Chen answered on the second ring. "Ms. Morrison, Patricia Williams said you might be calling. Are you in a secure location?" I explained everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Unlike everyone else I'd dealt with, Chen didn't sound skeptical or dismissive. "This escalation fits their pattern," he said. "When they sense opposition, they accelerate. The restraining order is concerning but also sloppy. Fake bruises can be exposed with proper investigation. Can you send me what evidence you have, including the video?" "Won't they just claim it's fake?" "Let them try. We have forensic tools that can verify authenticity. More importantly, this shows clear conspiracy. Your parents being conveniently present, the corrupted cloud storage, the psychiatrist who lost his license. These are threads we can pull." "But what do I do right now? I'm locked out of my house, suspended from my job, and in 7 days, a judge might make this permanent based on lies." "Document everything. Every text, every call, every interaction. Your brother calling to gloat was a mistake. Did you record it?" My heart sank. No, I didn't think. "Start thinking like the investigator Ms. Morrison. From now on, assume every interaction is potential evidence. In the meantime, I'll be opening a formal investigation. Your family doesn't know it yet, but they just made a crucial error." "What error?" "They involve law enforcement with a false report. That's a federal crime when it's part of a larger fraud scheme. Every lie they tell to support this restraining order is another charge we can bring." After we hung up, I sat in my hotel room plotting my next move. Patricia was right. I needed to be smarter, not just reactive. Ryan's arrogance, his need to gloat, was a weakness. He'd called me once to brag. He'd do it again. I set up my phone to automatically record all calls and waited. Sure enough, 3 hours later, he called again. "Missing home yet?" he asked cheerfully. "Just trying to understand why you're doing this," I said, keeping my voice small, defeated. Is the big bad doctor finally realizing she's outmatched? "Look, Tracy, it's nothing personal. You got the golden ticket, medical school, good job house. Me, I got compared to you every damn day. Why can't you be more like Tracy?" "Well, now I am like you. I've got your house, your credit card soon, I'll have your bank accounts." "How those are protected." "Mom's got a guy who specializes in financial documentation. Amazing what you can do with the right paperwork and a family member who's been declared mentally incompetent." "I haven't been declared incompetent." "Yet. But after your violent attack on me, your paranoid behavior at work, and Dr. Hoffman's testimony, well, it's really just a formality. The restraining order hearing is just the beginning. While you're fighting that Mom and Dad will file for emergency guardianship, you'll be so busy trying to get back in your house, you won't see the bigger play coming." "And then what, you'll just live in my house forever?" "Nah, too small for my taste. Once we sell it, I'm thinking downtown penthouse. Maybe I'll even invite you to visit. You know, when you get out." "Out of where?" He laughed. "Come on, Tracy. You're supposed to be the smart one. Where do violent, delusional people who assault their families end up?" "Don't worry. Dr. Hoffman knows a nice private facility. Very exclusive. Very secure. You'll have lots of time to think about how you should have just helped your family when you had the chance." The call ended, leaving me staring at my phone. I'd gotten the recording, but the content chilled me. They weren't just planning to take my assets. They were planning to have me institutionalized. I forwarded the recording to Agent Chen and Brennan, then called Patricia. "They're moving to the end game," she said after I filled her in. "Emergency guardianship followed by involuntary commitment. Once you're in a facility, fighting back becomes almost impossible. We need to accelerate our timeline." "How, I can't even go home." "That's exactly what they want. You feeling helpless, isolated. But Tracy, you have something they don't expect. You have me, and I've been preparing for this for 20 years. Tomorrow we make our move. Be ready." I spent the rest of the night in that hotel room planning and preparing. My family thought they had me cornered, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd let their greed and arrogance blind them to the fact that I was no longer alone. The restraining order was meant to be my defeat. Instead, it would be the beginning of their downfall, because while they were playing chess, I was about to flip the entire board. Patricia's move came at 6 in the morning with a text on my burner phone. "Check your email. New account I created for you. Memorize everything, then delete." The email contained detailed instructions and a revelation that changed everything. Patricia hadn't just been documenting my parents' crimes. She'd been in contact with several of their previous victims, slowly building a network of people willing to testify. But they needed a current case to tie it all together, someone actively being targeted who could provide real-time evidence. I was that person. According to Patricia, 3 former victims were ready to speak with the FBI Aunt Margaret who'd lost her house, a cousin named Daniel I'd never heard of who'd been declared mentally incompetent for 6 months before fighting his way free, and most shocking of all, my parents' former business partner who'd recorded conversations of them planning their schemes 15 years ago. But I needed to provide the bridge, current evidence of the pattern continuing. The phone recording of Ryan was good, but Patricia wanted more, much more. "Your brother is having a party tonight," her email explained. "Your parents will be there along with several family members they're using as witnesses. Get invited. Get them talking. Get everything." Getting invited to a party at my own house seemed impossible until I remembered Ryan's weakness, his ego. I sent him a text. "You win. I can't afford to fight this anymore. Can we talk?" His response was immediate. "Finally coming to your senses. Come by tonight. Mom and Dad will be here. We can work out a deal." I spent the day preparing. Agent Chen had provided me with a professional-grade recording device that looked like a car key fob. Patricia had given me conversation strategies, ways to trigger confessions without seeming obvious. Brennan had reluctantly agreed to the plan, warning me that anything I recorded might be inadmissible, but could guide the FBI investigation. As evening approached, I sat in my car outside my own house watching cars fill the driveway. Family members who'd condemned me were arriving for what looked like a celebration. My home had become their victory party. I knocked on my own front door at 8 p.m. Ryan answered, his fake bruises already fading despite the restraining order hearing being days away. "Tracy, come in, come in. Everyone's here. Well, everyone who matters." The scene inside was surreal. My aunts and uncles were scattered throughout my living room, drinking my wine, eating off my plates. My parents held court near the fireplace, my mother wearing jewelry I recognized from my grandmother's collection. Pieces that had supposedly been lost years ago. "Tracy, darling." My mother embraced me as if the last weeks hadn't happened. "I'm so glad you've come to your senses. This fighting was tearing the family apart." "I just want it to stop," I said truthfully. "I'm tired." "Of course you are," my father said, putting his arm around me. "You've been under so much stress. Working those long hours, living alone, trying to handle everything yourself. No wonder you've been struggling." I let them guide me to the couch, playing the broken daughter perfectly. Around us, family members watched with satisfaction, seeing their narrative confirmed. "So what happens now?" I asked. "Well, first we need to address the restraining order situation," my mother said smoothly. "Ryan's willing to drop it if you agree to some basic conditions, just to ensure everyone's safety and well-being." "What conditions?" Ryan produced a folder. They'd actually prepared documents for this moment. "Nothing major, just agreeing to let me stay here as long as I need covering basic expenses and giving Mom and Dad emergency access to your accounts. You know, in case something happens to you." "Emergency access. You work such dangerous hours," my father explained. "What if you're in an accident? Someone needs to be able to handle your affairs, pay your mortgage, manage your bills. It's just practical." I pretended to consider it, then shook my head. "I don't know. This seems like a lot." "More than losing your house?" Ryan asked. "More than losing your career?" "Come on, Tracy, you're supposed to be smart. You can't win this. I've got injuries, witnesses, documentation. You've got conspiracy theories about your loving family." "He's right, you know," Uncle Stuart chimed in. He'd clearly been drinking heavily. "Just give up Tracy. Your parents have been planning this for months, ever since you refused to help with their investment opportunity last year." My mother shot him a sharp look, but the damage was done. I filed that information away while maintaining my defeated expression. "What investment opportunity?" "Nothing dear," my mother said quickly. "Stuart's confused. Too much wine." But Stuart was on a roll. Confused, I'm not the one pretending Ryan got beat up, though that makeup job was pretty good. "Where'd you learn that trick, Sandra?" The room went silent. My mother's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing cold fury beneath. "I think you've had enough, Stuart," my father said firmly. "Maybe you should head home." "Maybe I should—" Stuart stood unsteadily. "But Tracy deserves to know what she's up against. They did this to cousin Daniel, you know. Poor kid spent 6 months in a psychiatric facility before his lawyer figured out the whole thing was based on forged documents. Cost him everything fighting it." "Stuart, that's enough," my mother snapped. "Is it? How much did you make off Daniel anyway? 50,000, 60. And Margaret's house? That was worth, 300,000. Not bad for a few forged signatures and some crocodile tears." My father stood physically positioning himself between Stuart and the rest of us. "You're drunk and talking nonsense. Tracy doesn't need to hear your conspiracy theories." "Conspiracy theories?" Stuart laughed bitterly. "That's rich coming from the king and queen of conspiracies. Hey, Tracy, ask them about Grandpa Morrison's missing money. Ask them why he died in a state facility when he'd saved for 40 years for a nice retirement." "Get out!" My mother's voice was ice. "Now!" Stuart looked at me with bloodshot eyes. "They're going to destroy you, kid. Just like they destroyed everyone else who had something they wanted. But at least now you know." He stumbled toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Ryan. Next time you fake injuries, remember that bruises don't fade evenly. Real ones leave a pattern. Makeup just smears. After he left, the room was thick with tension. Family members avoided eye contact, suddenly very interested in their drinks or phones. The mask had slipped, and everyone had seen what was underneath. Well, my mother forced a laugh. Stuart always was the dramatic one. Pay no attention to his ramblings, Tracy. Now, about those documents. I need some air, I said, standing up. This is a lot to process. Of course, dear. Take your time. We'll be here. I stepped onto my back porch, my mind racing. Stuart's drunken revelations had given me more than I'd hoped for. But I needed more specific admissions, and I needed them from the primary players. Ryan joined me a few minutes later, beer in hand. Sorry about Uncle Stuart. He's always been jealous of Mom and Dad's success. Success, I prompted. Yeah, they're smart with money, know how to make it work for them. Like this situation with you, they saw an opportunity and took it. That's just business. I'm family, not business. He laughed. Come on, Tracy. Everything's business. You think your patients care about you? No, they care about what you can do for them. Same with family. You've got resources we need. We're just being honest about it. So all of this, the credit cards, the restraining order, the mental health claims, it's just business. Exactly. He seemed pleased I was finally getting it. Look between you and me. The whole mental illness thing is just leverage. Nobody really thinks you're crazy, but it's useful for negotiations makes you more cooperative. And if I don't cooperate, his expression hardened. Then we go with Plan B. Dr. Hoffman has a nice facility all picked out. Private, discreet, very hard to leave without family approval. 6 months there and you'll be begging to sign whatever we want. You'd really have me locked up your own sister. I'd rather not, he admitted. It's expensive and complicated. Much easier if you just play ball now. Sign the papers, accept the situation, and we all move forward as a happy family. You can even keep working, keep earning. We just manage things for you. Like you managed things for Daniel. His eyes sharpened. Stuart's got a big mouth. Yeah, Daniel fought us. Cost him a year of his life and every penny he had. You want to go that route because I guarantee we've gotten better since then. I was about to respond when my mother appeared at the door. Ryan, dear, could you give us a moment? I need to talk to Tracy privately. Ryan shrugged and went inside. My mother stepped out, closing the door behind her. In the dim porch light, she looked older, harder. Let me be very clear, she said quietly. Stuart's outburst was unfortunate, but it changes nothing. We have documentation, witnesses, and a plan that's been months in the making. You can either work with us or against us, but the outcome will be the same. Why, I asked simply, why do this to your own daughter? For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, regret, pain, but it was gone instantly. Because you were never really ours, she said coldly. You were always Grandma Rose's favorite, always too good for us with your precious medical career. We gave you life, raised you, and what did we get? A daughter who looks down on us, who hoards her success while we struggle. I never looked down on you. I loved you. Love doesn't pay bills, Tracy. Love doesn't buy security. You have more than you need, and we're simply redistributing the family wealth more equitably. Your father and I won't be around forever. We deserve comfort in our golden years. Comfort built on destroying your children. Dramatic as always. We're not destroying anyone. We're just managing family resources. Daniel recovered, didn't he? Margaret found a smaller place. Everyone adapts. And the people who didn't recover, Grandpa, Morris, and Uncle Carl. Her face hardened completely. Careful, Tracy. You're treading on dangerous ground. The restraining order hearing is in 5 days. How that goes depends entirely on your cooperation. Keep fighting us and Ryan's bruises will be the least of your problems. We have photographs, medical records, witness statements. Even your precious FBI friend won't be able to help when 12 family members testify about your violent behavior. My FBI friend, she smiled coldly. Oh, yes, we know about Agent Chen. Did you really think we wouldn't monitor your calls? Your new phone isn't as secure as you think. We know you're trying to build a case, but sweetheart, we've been doing this longer than you've been alive. Every move you make, we've already countered. My blood ran cold. If they knew about the FBI, knew about my plans. Don't look so shocked, she continued. We're not amateurs. Your father has connections you can't imagine. That FBI investigation, it'll go nowhere. Agent Chen will find his evidence disappearing, witnesses recanting his superiors, questioning his focus on a family dispute. We've survived worse than one idealistic federal agent. Then why offer me a deal at all? Because despite everything, you are our daughter. This can be easy or hard, Tracy. Easy means you sign the papers tonight, accept Ryan as a permanent resident, give us financial oversight, and continue your life with some reasonable restrictions. Hard means restraining orders, guardianship proceedings, institutionalization, and the complete destruction of everything you've built. Your choice. She turned to go back inside, then paused. Oh, and that recording device in your pocket, the one that looks like a key fob, it hasn't been working since you walked in. Your father has a signal jammer in the living room. Like I said, we're not amateurs. She left me standing on my own porch, reeling from the revelations. They knew everything, had countered everything, were 10 steps ahead at every turn. But as I stood there in the darkness, I realized something. Their confidence, their need to explain their superiority, their assumption that they'd won. It was their weakness. Because while they'd been focused on the recording device Patricia had given me, they'd forgotten about the one Agent Chen had provided. The car key fob was a decoy. The real recorder was in my shoe, still running, still capturing every word. I went back inside, played the defeated daughter for another hour, then left with promises to think about their offer. As I drove away, I called Agent Chen from a payphone. They know about you, I said, without preamble. They're monitoring my communications. They have a signal jammer they knew about the recording device. Good, he said, surprising me. Let them think they're winning. Ms. Morrison, we've been investigating your parents for longer than 3 years. We know about their connections, their methods, their confidence. What they don't know is that Stuart isn't as drunk as he seemed tonight, and he's been wearing a wire for the last 6 months. The revelation hit me like lightning. Stuart's working with you. Your parents destroyed his retirement savings 5 years ago. He's been playing the bitter drunk ever since staying close, gathering evidence. Tonight's outburst calculated to make them reveal more. And from what we heard, it worked perfectly. You heard, but the signal jammer blocked consumer-grade devices, not federal equipment. We have every word from tonight, including your mother's admissions and Ryan's threats about psychiatric facilities. Combined with the evidence Patricia's been providing and the testimony of previous victims, we have enough to move forward. So what happens now? Now we let them think they've won. The restraining order hearing will proceed as planned. Let them present their false evidence, commit perjury, dig themselves deeper. Because the moment that hearing ends, we'll be ready with federal warrants. Wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, elder abuse. Your parents are looking at 20 years minimum. Ryan's looking at 10 to 15. And my house, my job, my life will be restored. The restraining order will be vacated once they're arrested. The credit fraud will be prosecuted. Your suspension will be lifted once it's clear you were the victim, not the perpetrator. It won't be easy or quick, but you'll get your life back. I sat in my car processing everything. The game wasn't over. In fact, the real game was just beginning. My family thought they'd won, thought their experience and connections made them untouchable. They were about to learn that 30 years of getting away with crimes had made them comfortable, sloppy, overconfident, and that would be their downfall. As I drove back to the hotel, I allowed myself a small smile. They'd taken my house, my job, my family's trust, but they'd given me something more valuable, the evidence and allies needed to stop them permanently. The gathering had been their victory party. It would also be the last free celebration they'd ever have. The morning after the party, I woke to find 17 missed calls on my burner phone. Not from my family, but from a number I didn't recognize. The voicemails were increasingly frantic, all from the same woman. "Tracy, this is Janet Rodriguez. I'm Daniel's ex-wife. I heard what your family's doing to you. Please call me back. I have information you need." Daniel. The cousin Stuart had mentioned who'd been institutionalized. I called Patricia first. Janet's legitimate, Patricia confirmed. She tried to help Daniel fight your parents 6 years ago. Lost everything in the process. Her savings, her marriage, her faith in justice. If she's reaching out now, it's significant. I met Janet at a diner 2 towns over. She looked exhausted, worn down by years of fighting a battle she'd lost, but her eyes were sharp, determined. "I've been waiting for this," she said without preamble. "Waiting for them to target someone who could actually fight back. When I heard about you, about what's happening, I knew it was time." She pulled out a tablet, swiping through documents. "During Daniel's commitment, I hired a private investigator. Couldn't afford a good one, but he found things. Connections between your parents and Dr. Hoffman going back 15 years. Financial records showing payments to facility staff. Most importantly, this." She showed me a photograph of my parents at a banking conference 8 years ago. They were seated at a table with several other people, all smiling for the camera. "So, look closer. That man on your father's left, Marcus Webb. He specializes in alternative financial instruments, fancy term for fraud. The woman next to your mother, Linda Garrison. She runs a company that creates synthetic identities for credit repair. These are their partners, Tracy. Your parents aren't just con artists. They're part of an organized network." My mind reeled. How big is this network? I don't know. My PI disappeared when he started digging deeper. Just vanished one day, left all his files behind. But I kept everything. When the FBI contacted me last month, I gave them copies. But Tracy, there's something else. Something that might help you immediately. She pulled out another document. Dr. Hoffman's psychiatric facility. It has a pattern. Patients admitted for family-related stress disorders who coincidentally sign over financial power of attorney within weeks of admission. At least 12 cases in the last decade, all referred by the same small group of doctors, all with family members who suddenly came into money after the commitment. So it's not just about me. It was never just about you. You're the latest target, but this is a business model. Identify family members with assets, create documentation of mental illness, institutionalize them, drain their resources. It's brilliant in its evil. Why didn't anyone stop them before? Janet's face darkened. They tried. A journalist started investigating 3 years ago. Car accident. A social worker noticed the pattern. Suddenly transferred out of state. A judge questioned one of the commitments. Retired early after a scandal about bribes that was never proven but destroyed his reputation. These people don't just steal money, Tracy. They destroy anyone who threatens their operation. The weight of what I was facing hit me full force. This wasn't just my parents running a con. This was organized crime wrapped in family dysfunction. "So why are you talking to me? Aren't you afraid?" "I've already lost everything," Janet said simply. "Daniel never recovered. The medications they forced on him, the gaslighting, the months of being told he was crazy, it broke something in him. We divorced 2 years ago. He lives with his sister now, can barely function. Your parents didn't just steal his money, they stole his mind." "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry, be angry, be smart, and be careful. I'm taking a risk meeting you, but Agent Chen promised protection if I testify. Are you recording this?" I showed her the device in my shoe. She smiled grimly. "Good. Then let me tell you what really happened to Daniel. Every detail I remember, every document I saved, every person who was involved. Because your restraining order hearing is in 4 days, and they're going to use the same playbook they used on him. But this time, we'll be ready." For the next 3 hours, Janet laid out the systematic destruction of her ex-husband, the falsified medical records showing paranoid behavior, The family members coached to provide specific testimony, the way Dr. Hoffman had interviewed Daniel for exactly 15 minutes before declaring him a danger to himself and others. The medications that made him confused, compliant, unable to fight back. The key was the family testimony, she explained. 12 relatives all saying the same things, using the same phrases. Paranoid behavior, aggressive outbursts, delusional thinking. They'd even created incidents, family dinners where Daniel supposedly threatened people, conversations that never happened, violence that was pure fiction. How did they get everyone to lie? Same way they're doing it to you. Some believed the lies after enough repetition. Others were promised money from Daniel's assets. A few were threatened, cooperate or become the next target. Your parents are masters at finding leverage. But you fought back. I tried, spent our savings on lawyers, but every move I made, they countered. They painted me as the greedy ex-wife trying to steal Daniel's money, said I was coaching him, feeding his delusions. By the end, even I started wondering if maybe he was sick, if maybe I was wrong. That's how good they are. She pulled up another file. This is the commitment order. Look at the language. It's not just about immediate danger. It includes inability to manage financial affairs and susceptibility to undue influence. Once that's established, the facility takes over everything. And guess who they contract with for financial management? Let me guess. Companies connected to my parents' network. Exactly. It's a conveyor belt. Family identifies target. Dr. Hoffman provides diagnosis facility, provides control, financial managers drain assets. Everyone gets a cut. Except the victim. The victim gets medication therapy for their delusions. And if they're lucky, release after everything's gone. If they keep fighting, if they won't accept their illness, they stay longer. Daniel fought for 6 months before he broke. My phone buzzed. Text from my mother. Restraining order hearing moved up to tomorrow. Judge had an opening. Be there at 9 a.m. or it becomes permanent by default. Janet saw my face. They're accelerating. Hearings tomorrow, 3 days early. They know something. Maybe about our meeting, maybe about the FBI. Tracy, you need to be prepared for anything tomorrow. They'll have their witnesses, their evidence, their tears. You'll look like the aggressor no matter what you say. Unless I don't fight it. She stared at me. What? Agent Chen said to let them commit perjury, let them think they're winning. If I fight aggressively, I play into their narrative. But if I show up looking broken, defeated, if I let them present their lies without much resistance... You give them rope to hang themselves, Janet finished. That's dangerous. If the restraining order becomes permanent, you lose access to your house, your possessions. They'll use that time to strengthen their position. Or to get overconfident and make mistakes. Janet, can you be at the courthouse tomorrow? Not inside, that would be too obvious, but nearby. Why? Because you know their playbook. If you see them deviating, if you spot something I might miss, you can alert Agent Chen. Be my eyes outside while I'm trapped inside their performance. She nodded slowly. I'll be there. And Tracy. Whatever happens tomorrow, don't let them break you like they broke Daniel. The moment you start doubting yourself, wondering if maybe they're right, that's when they win. Hold on to your truth no matter what lies they tell. We parted with Janet promising to compile everything she'd shared into a package for the FBI. As I drove back to the hotel, I thought about Daniel, about all the victims who'd been crushed by this machine my parents had built. Tomorrow would be their show, their stage, their script. But I had something they didn't expect. Allies who'd survived them before federal agents building a case. And most importantly, the knowledge that their confidence was about to be their downfall. The restraining order hearing would be my parents' greatest performance. It would also be their last. I spent the evening preparing with Patricia and Agent Chen via secure communications. Chen confirmed that arrest warrants were being prepared, but they needed the hearing to proceed first. Let them perjure themselves, he reminded me. Every lie they tell under oath is another federal charge. Your job is to survive tomorrow while appearing defeated. Can you do that? I thought about everything Janet had shared about Daniel's fate, about the network of criminals masquerading as family. I can do more than that, I promised. I can give them exactly what they expect to see, while you prepare to give them what they deserve. The ally I'd found in Janet had given me more than information. She'd given me proof that survivors existed, that the machine could be fought, that my parents' perfect record was about to be broken. Tomorrow the real performance would begin. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I was ready for it. The courthouse was exactly as I'd imagined it would be. Cold, imposing, and filled with my family members who'd arrived early to show their support for Ryan. I counted at least 15 relatives in the hallway, all avoiding eye contact with me as I walked past. Janet was nowhere to be seen, but I knew she was close by watching. What I didn't expect was the woman who approached me just outside the courtroom. "Dr. Morrison, I'm Lisa Park from Channel 7 News. We received a tip about your case. Care to comment on the allegations that you've been violent toward your family?" A camera appeared from nowhere, its red light blinking. My parents had called the media. Of course they had. Public humiliation was just another weapon in their arsenal. No comment. I managed pushing past her into the courtroom. Inside the scene was carefully orchestrated. Ryan sat at the plaintiff's table, somehow managing to look both vulnerable and brave. My parents flanked him, my mother dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, my father's arm protectively around Ryan's shoulders. Their lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in her 50s, was arranging photographs on the table, the fake bruises displayed in glossy, dramatic detail. My lawyer, Brennan, looked grim as I sat beside him. "They filed additional evidence this morning," he whispered. 12 affidavits from family members, a psychological evaluation from Dr. Hoffman, and security footage from your house showing you aggressively confronting Ryan. What footage? That never happened. Apparently it did, or at least something they've edited to look like it did. Tracy, this is bad. Judge Martinez is known for taking family violence seriously. With this much evidence, it's all fake, I said louder than I intended. Several people turned to look. "See?" I heard my aunt whisper. "She can't control herself even here." Judge Martinez entered, and we all rose. She was younger than I'd expected, with sharp eyes that took in everything. As she reviewed the case file, her expression grew increasingly serious. "This is a hearing for a permanent restraining order," she began. "Mr. Ryan Morrison alleges that his sister, Dr. Tracy Morrison, has engaged in a pattern of violence and threats that make him fear for his safety. Mr. Morrison, you may present your case." Ryan's lawyer stood, her voice dripping with professional sympathy. "Your Honor, what we have here is a tragic case of sibling violence exacerbated by mental health issues. My client has been subjected to repeated physical assaults, verbal threats, and psychological torture by his sister, who resents his presence in what she considers her house." The lies flowed smoothly. According to their version, I'd attacked Ryan unprovoked, multiple times threatened to poison his food, tried to push him down the stairs, and made detailed threats about making him disappear. Each allegation was supported by witness statements, photographs, even a video that showed someone who looked like me shoving someone who looked like Ryan. "The family has tried to intervene," the lawyer continued, "but Dr. Morrison refuses to acknowledge her behavior. She's made wild accusations against family members who only want to help, including claims that her loving parents are somehow conspiring against her. Classic paranoid ideation, according to Dr. Hoffman's evaluation." Dr. Hoffman took the stand, his credentials impressively recited despite having lost his license. No one mentioned that part. He spoke eloquently about stress-induced psychosis and violent ideation in high-achieving individuals who feel their control slipping. "In my professional opinion," he concluded, "Dr. Morrison poses a significant threat not only to her brother, but to anyone she perceives as threatening her worldview. She needs immediate intervention before someone gets seriously hurt." Then came the family parade. Aunt Helen testified about my aggressive behavior at family gatherings. Uncle Marcus described my paranoid rants, about identity theft. Cousin Lisa cried as she recounted how I'd threatened her when she tried to help resolve the situation. Each testimony was perfectly crafted, hitting the same themes. I was violent, delusional, dangerous. They'd rehearsed well, though I noticed some of them stumbling over specific phrases as if reciting from a script they'd memorized. My mother's testimony was the masterpiece. She sobbed through her account of trying to help her troubled daughter, of watching me spiral into madness, of fearing for Ryan's life. I love both my children. She wept. But Tracy needs help we can't provide. This restraining order might be the wake-up call she needs to seek treatment. I pray every night that my daughter will come back to us the real Tracy we used to know. Judge Martinez turned to me. Dr. Morrison, you may respond to these allegations. Brennan stood, but I put my hand on his arm. I'd like to speak for myself, Your Honor. He looked alarmed, but sat down. I stood slowly, feeling every eye in the room on me. Your Honor, I understand how this looks. My family has presented compelling evidence of violence and mental illness. Any reasonable person would be convinced. I certainly would be in your position. I saw surprise flicker across my parents' faces. This wasn't the aggressive denial they'd expected. But I ask you to consider one thing, I continued. If I were truly violent, truly dangerous, would my brother still be living in my house? Would my family gather around him in support while leaving me the allegedly mentally ill person to fend for myself? Where is their concern for my well-being if they genuinely believe I'm sick? Objection, Ryan's lawyer said. The respondent is deflecting from the evidence. I'll allow it, Judge Martinez said. Continue, Dr. Morrison. I'm not going to claim a conspiracy or make wild accusations, I said carefully. I'm simply going to note that in my work as an emergency physician, I've seen actual abuse victims. They don't typically throw parties in their abuser's home the night before court hearings. They don't pose for photos with mysterious bruises that fade with remarkable speed. And they certainly don't have their abuser's credit cards in their possession. Your Honor, Ryan's lawyer interrupted, Dr. Morrison is doing exactly what Dr. Hoffman predicted, creating an alternate narrative to avoid responsibility. But I saw something in Judge Martinez's eyes, a flicker of interest, maybe doubt. Do you have evidence to contradict what's been presented? She asked me directly. I have questions, I replied. Why did my brother change his address to my house 2 weeks before allegedly being assaulted? Why did family members who hadn't visited in years suddenly appear to witness these events? Why is the security footage pixelated just enough to hide clear identification? And why, if I'm so dangerous, has no one called Adult Protective Services or sought a psychological hold? They've had multiple opportunities. The courtroom was silent. My mother's tears had stopped, and she was watching me with calculation. Furthermore, I continued, I noticed Dr. Hoffman managed to evaluate me without ever meeting me. I wonder if his assessment would hold up under peer review, or if the medical board might be interested in his sudden return to practice after losing his license for... Objection, Ryan's lawyer nearly shouted. Relevance and defamation. Sustained, Judge Martinez said, but she was looking at Dr. Hoffman differently now. Your Honor. I concluded, I'm not asking you to dismiss this case. I'm asking you to investigate it properly. Subpoena the original security footage, not the edited version. Have the bruises examined by an independent medical examiner. Interview witnesses separately, not in groups where they can coordinate stories. And maybe ask why a man too afraid to be near me is comfortable enough to use my credit cards for a shopping spree. Ryan's face flushed. She's lying. Those cards were gifts. She's just... His lawyer grabbed his arm, shutting him up, but the damage was done. Judge Martinez's eyebrows rose. Mr. Morrison, you have your sister's credit cards. She gave them to me before she got violent, as part of our rental agreement. The rental agreement dated 2 weeks ago, before the alleged violence began. Ryan looked trapped. My parents were whispering urgently to their lawyer. Your Honor. Brennan stood, sensing the momentum shift. We'd like to submit evidence of fraudulent charges on Dr. Morrison's accounts, including a vehicle purchased in her name without her knowledge. Objection. This isn't a fraud hearing, but it speaks to credibility and motive, Judge Martinez said slowly. I'll allow it. The next 30 minutes were beautiful chaos. Brennan presented evidence of the credit fraud, the forged signatures, the suspicious timing of everything. Ryan's lawyer fought every point, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Then my phone buzzed, a text from Janet. Check the hallway. Now. Your Honor, I said. May I request a brief recess? I believe there's a witness outside who's afraid to enter. Judge Martinez looked annoyed but curious. 5 minutes. I rushed to the hallway to find Daniel standing there, Janet's ex-husband, the cousin who'd been destroyed by my parents 6 years ago. He looked fragile, but determined. I can't go in there, he whispered, but tell the judge to check case number 2018 FC 0847. Same courthouse. Same judge who signed my commitment order is in there right now as a witness. Uncle Marcus. He's not a doctor, but he signed medical opinions in my case. Same handwriting as some of these affidavits. I squeezed his hand and ran back inside. Your Honor, I'd like to reference case 2018 FC 0847. You might find interesting parallels, particularly in the witness signatures. Judge Martinez called for the case file. As she reviewed it, her expression darkened. She looked at Uncle Marcus, who was shifting nervously in his seat. Mr. Marcus Morrison, she said slowly, did you provide medical testimony in the 2018 commitment hearing of Daniel Morrison? I don't recall. You don't recall signing a document claiming medical expertise you don't possess. The courtroom erupted. Ryan's lawyer objected. My parents were on their feet. But Judge Martinez banged her gavel. Order, I'm seeing troubling patterns here. Similar language in affidavits, the same witnesses, the same accusations. She looked directly at my parents. And apparently the same fraudulent medical testimony. Your Honor. My mother stood tears forgotten. There's clearly been some misunderstanding. We're just a family trying to protect... Sit down, Mrs. Morrison. I've heard enough for today. I'm not ready to rule on this restraining order. Instead, I'm ordering an investigation into potential perjury and fraud. All evidence will be reviewed by independent experts. Until then, the temporary order is suspended. But Your Honor, Ryan protested, I don't feel safe. Then perhaps you should find alternative accommodation, Mr. Morrison. Surely your parents, who care so deeply for your well-being, can house you. Dr. Morrison, you may return to your home immediately. The gavel came down. My family sat in stunned silence, their perfect plan unraveling. But I saw the fury in my parents' eyes and knew this wasn't over. As we filed out, Agent Chen appeared beside me. Well done, but stay alert. Wounded animals are the most dangerous. In the hallway, the reporter tried to approach again, but this time she was intercepted by FBI agents. I heard one of them say something about interfering with a federal investigation. I found Daniel outside Janet, supporting him. Thank you, I said. That was incredibly brave. They destroyed me, he said simply. I couldn't let them do it to someone else. But Tracy, be careful. When they had me committed, it happened fast. One day, I was fighting them, the next, I was sedated in a facility. Don't let your guard down. As I drove toward my house, for the first time in days, I felt a mix of triumph and terror. I'd won this battle, but the war was far from over. My phone rang. Patricia. Brilliant work, she said. But they're regrouping. My contact at the courthouse says your parents just filed an emergency motion for adult guardianship, claiming the hearing proved your mental instability. They're judge shopping, looking for someone who doesn't know about today's fiasco. When does it end? When they're behind bars. Chen says arrests are imminent, but your parents are flight risks. Don't go home alone. I'll meet you there with some FBI friends. I pulled over, suddenly exhausted. The counterattack had worked, but Daniel's warning echoed in my mind. My parents had spent 30 years perfecting their schemes. They wouldn't give up because of one failed hearing. The real fight was just beginning. But for the first time, I had the advantage. They were exposed, desperate, and making mistakes. The hunter had become the hunted, and I was done being prey. I never made it home that night. 3 blocks from my house, Patricia called, her voice urgent. "Don't go home. They're there with a locksmith and moving trucks. Turn around now." I pulled into a parking lot, my heart sinking. "But the judge suspended the order. I can go home." They're claiming there was a clerical error, that the suspension doesn't take effect until tomorrow. It's bullshit, but they've got a notary there making it look official. Chen's sending units, but we need an emergency injunction. Can you get to Brennan's office? 20 minutes later, I was back in the now familiar conference room while Brennan worked his phone calling judges at home. It was past 8 p.m. and most weren't answering. "Found one," he finally said. "Judge Thompson will hear us in an hour. But Tracy, your parents filed their guardianship petition an hour ago. They're asking for an emergency psychiatric hold based on your erratic behavior at today's hearing." Erratic behavior? I was calm. I presented facts. "According to their filing, you made grandiose claims of conspiracy and displayed paranoid ideation inconsistent with reality. They have 17 family members ready to testify that you've become increasingly unstable." Patricia burst in, Agent Chen beside her. "We have a problem. Ryan's gone, and so is the BMW. Security footage from your house shows him loading boxes. Your personal documents, computers, anything valuable. Can't you stop him?" With what probable cause? Chen's frustration was evident. Officially, he's still a legal resident retrieving his belongings. The fact that those belongings are actually yours is a civil matter, until we can prove otherwise. "So he's robbing me while you watch." "We're documenting everything. Every item he takes is another charge. But right now, we need to focus on stopping this guardianship. If they get that nothing else matters." Judge Thompson agreed to see us at his home, an unusual move that spoke to Brennan's persuasive skills. The elderly judge listened patiently as we laid out the day's events and the emergency situation. "This is quite the family drama," he said finally. "But I've reviewed Judge Martinez's notes from today. She has serious concerns about fraud and perjury. Based on that, I'm granting an emergency injunction preventing any change to Dr. Morrison's property or status until a full investigation is complete." "Your Honor." Brennan pressed, "What about the guardianship petition?" "I'm issuing a stay on all proceedings related to Dr. Morrison pending investigation. No hearings, no evaluations, no emergency holds without my explicit approval. And I'm ordering the immediate return of any property removed from her residence." Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived. As we left Judge Thompson's house, Chen's phone rang. His face darkened as he listened. "Your parents are at the airport," he said. "Private terminal. They've chartered a flight to Costa Rica." "Stop them." "We're trying, but our warrant isn't signed yet. Unless they're on a commercial flight, TSA has no authority, and private charter security is flexible." We raced to the airport, but by the time we arrived, the plane was taxiing. Through the terminal windows, I could see my parents settling into their seats, my mother raising a champagne glass in a mock toast toward the building. "They knew," Patricia said quietly. "They knew the walls were closing in." "What about Ryan?" "Still at your house, apparently. Seems your parents left him behind to take the fall." The betrayal was perfect in its cruelty. They'd used their son as a weapon, then abandoned him when things went wrong. We drove to my house to find chaos. Ryan was screaming at someone on the phone, standing amid boxes of my possessions. "What do you mean you're not coming back? You said, if I followed the plan." Mom. He saw us approaching with the police and his face crumbled. The confident con artist was gone, replaced by a man realizing he'd been played by his own parents. "They left me," he said, sounding bewildered. "Said they'd be right back, just needed to handle some banking. But they're gone, aren't they?" "Mr. Morrison," one of the officers stepped forward, "we have an injunction requiring you to return all property belonging to Dr. Morrison and vacate the premises immediately." "Return it? I can't return what I already sold. The jewelry, the electronics. Mom said it was my payment for playing along. Said Tracy had plenty more where that came from." Chen stepped forward. Mr. Morrison, you might want to remain silent until you have an attorney. Attorney with what money they took everything said they'd put my cut in an offshore account, but I can't access it. The passwords they gave me don't work. They played me just like we played Tracy. The irony was bitter. The golden child, the chosen accomplice, abandoned the moment he became a liability. As police photographed the scene and documented what was missing, Ryan sat on my couch, my violated stained couch, and began to talk. It was all planned, he said dully. Has been for months. Dad found out about your savings, your equity, your credit score. Mom researched tenant laws, found the loopholes. They said it would be easy money, that you were selfish for not sharing with family anyway. Ryan stopped talking. I advised, surprising myself with a flash of pity. Why, so I can protect them. They're probably in international waters by now. You know what Mom said when she hugged me goodbye? Thanks for your service. Like I was just another mark. Chen was recording everything, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. Ryan was a criminal, but he was also a victim of the same people who'd raised him to be their tool. The psychiatric hold plan. Ryan continued, seemingly unable to stop. That was next. Dr. Hoffman has a facility in Nevada, specializes in family intervention therapy. Once you were there, Mom had documents ready. Power of attorney, property transfers, even a will. All perfectly legal once you were declared incompetent. The same thing they did to Daniel. Daniel fought too hard. That's why he broke. You were supposed to be smarter, supposed to negotiate compromise, but you kept fighting. Dad said you were just like Aunt Patricia, too stubborn to know when you were beaten. Over the next hours, as my house was processed as a crime scene, the full scope emerged. My parents had been planning this for over a year. They'd researched every aspect of my life down to my work schedule and the brand of coffee I drank. They'd cultivated relationships with family members specifically to use as witnesses. They'd even planted subtle suggestions about my stress and mood changes, months in advance, laying groundwork for the mental illness narrative. The FBI investigation, Ryan said at one point. They knew about it for weeks, had someone on the inside feeding them information. That's why they accelerated everything. The restraining order hearing was supposed to be their checkmate, but you turned it around, so they activated the backup plan. Take what they could and run. Inside source at the FBI, Chen's voice was sharp. Someone in records, not an agent, just admin staff. Paid them for updates on any investigations involving the family. Mom always said information was more valuable than money. By dawn, my house was mine again, though it felt violent and foreign. Ryan was in custody, charged with fraud, identity theft, and burglary. He'd waived his right to an attorney, seeming almost relieved to be arrested. At least in prison, I'll know where I stand, he said as they led him away. No more pretending to be family. Chen stayed behind after everyone left. Your parents will be caught, he assured me. Costa Rica has an extradition treaty. It might take time, but they'll face justice. And everyone they've hurt over the years, we're reaching out to all known victims. With Ryan's testimony and the evidence we've gathered, we can build cases going back 20 years. Your parents were meticulous record keepers. They documented every scam, probably for tax purposes, if you can believe it. Those records will be their downfall. Patricia arrived as Chen left, bringing coffee and industrial-strength cleaning supplies. We're going to reclaim this space, she said firmly. Every inch of it. As we cleaned, she shared stories of the family before the corruption when my grandparents were alive, and gatherings were actually about love, not schemes. It was a fantasy I'd never known, but it helped to imagine it had once existed. Your parents were always different, she said. Even as kids, they were manipulative, greedy. But we made excuses. They're just ambitious. They're just clever. We enabled them by refusing to see what they really were. What happens to the family now, the ones who helped them? Some will face charges for perjury. Others will claim they were manipulated, which might even be true. The family will fracture, but maybe that's necessary. Maybe from the pieces, something honest can grow. My phone rang. Unknown international number. I answered on speaker. "Tracy, darling." My mother's voice was calm, unrepentant. "I hear you're cleaning. You always were too particular about that house." "The FBI will find you." "Perhaps, but we've had 30 years to prepare for this possibility. Did you know there are countries with no extradition treaties that are quite lovely this time of year?" "You left Ryan." A pause. Ryan made his choices. He was getting sloppy careless. The alcohol, the bragging. He was becoming a liability, better a clean break. "He's your son." "He's a disappointment. You, though, you were magnificent. The way you turned that hearing around, I was genuinely proud. You're definitely our daughter." "I'm nothing like you." "Aren't you? You fought dirty when cornered. You manipulated the judge, played on emotions, twisted facts to your advantage. You survived because you have our instincts, our intelligence. The only difference is you waste those gifts on helping strangers instead of family." "Those strangers are my patients. I save lives." "You postponed death. We secured futures, which has more lasting impact." I couldn't believe I was having a philosophical debate with my fugitive mother. "You destroyed lives. Daniel, Margaret, dozens of others. We redistributed assets from those who couldn't protect them to those who could use them better. Natural selection, financially speaking. But I didn't call to debate ethics, darling. I called to warn you." My blood chilled. "Warn me?" "Dr. Hoffman is upset about his facility losing a patient. He has friends who are equally upset about lost revenue. We're beyond their reach now, but you're not. Watch your back, Tracy. The family business has more branches than you know." The line went dead. Chen, who'd returned when he saw the international call coming in, was already on his phone tracing it. "Empty threat?" Patricia asked hopefully. "Maybe, but we're not taking chances. Tracy, I'm assigning protection until we can investigate these other connections." I looked around my damaged, emptied home at the few possessions Ryan hadn't managed to sell or steal. 6 weeks ago, I'd had a career, a family, a life I thought I understood. Now I had the truth. Ugly, painful, but mine. "Let them come," I said, surprising myself with my calm. "I'm done running from my family's shadows. Whatever network they've built, whoever else is involved, I'll face them. Because Mom was wrong about one thing. I'm nothing like them. I don't destroy lives. I save them. And now I'm going to save everyone they've hurt, starting with myself." The sun was rising through my kitchen windows, painting everything gold. A new day, a new beginning. The emergency injunction had saved my home, but more than that, it had shown me I could fight back and win. My parents were gone, but their legacy remained. Victims to help networks to expose justice to pursue. They'd trained me well in their twisted way. Now I'd use every lesson they'd taught me to destroy everything they'd built. The war wasn't over. If anything, it had just expanded. But I was ready. I had allies, evidence, and most importantly, the truth. Let them all come. The hunter had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. 3 weeks passed in a strange limbo. Ryan had been formally charged and was awaiting trial, his bail set at $1 million that no one would pay. My parents remained ghosts, their location unknown despite international efforts. I'd returned to work after Dr. Chen reviewed my case and lifted my suspension, but nothing felt normal. The FBI protection was subtle but constant. Unmarked cars outside my house, agents posing as hospital security, someone always watching. Agent Chen checked in daily building cases against the network my mother had warned about. Then at 2 a.m. on a Thursday, everything accelerated. I woke to my phone ringing. Chen's voice was tense with excitement. "We got them. Mexican authorities arrested your parents an hour ago in Guadalajara. They were using fake passports, but someone recognized them from our alerts." Mexico, I thought they went to Costa Rica. Misdirection. They flew to Costa Rica, then immediately chartered another flight to Mexico. They've been hiding in a compound owned by one of their network associates. But here's the interesting part. They weren't alone. We've identified 6 other people wanted for various financial crimes. Looks like your parents were trying to set up a new operation." Of course they were. I felt nothing. No relief, no satisfaction, just emptiness. What happens now? Extradition will take a few days. They'll be transferred to federal custody, arraigned here. Tracy, when they arrive, they'll likely try to contact you. They'll want to make a deal. No deals. That's not your call. If they have information about the larger network, the prosecutor might offer reduced sentences. I wanted you to be prepared. I hung up and couldn't get back to sleep. Instead, I made coffee and sat in my kitchen thinking about the last conversation with my mother. Her complete lack of remorse, her twisted pride in my survival. Would prison change that, or would she see it as just another challenge to overcome? The news broke at 6 a.m. Fugitive couple arrested in Mexico ran across the morning shows, their photos displayed like modern-day Bonnie and Clyde. My phone exploded with calls from reporters, relatives, colleagues. I turned it off and went to work early. The hospital was buzzing with gossip, but my colleagues were professional. A few offered awkward condolences as if my parents had died rather than been arrested. In a way, maybe they had. The parents I thought I'd known had never existed. 3 days later, I stood in a federal courtroom as my parents were brought in wearing orange jumpsuits and shackles. They looked smaller, somehow older. My father's perfect posture was gone, replaced by a defeated slouch. But my mother's eyes were as sharp as ever, scanning the room, cataloging threats and opportunities. They pleaded not guilty to 47 federal charges, including wire fraud, identity theft, money laundering, and conspiracy. Bail was denied. Flight risk, the judge said, which almost made my mother smile. As they were led out, my mother caught my eye. "We need to talk," she mouthed. That afternoon, Brennan called. "Your parents' attorney reached out. They want a meeting. Family only, they said." "Absolutely not." "I agree. But Tracy, they claim to have information about threats against you. Say they'll only share it with you directly." It's manipulation. Everything with them is manipulation. Probably, but the FBI is taking the threat seriously. There have been developments. What developments? 2 of Dr. Hoffman's associates were arrested yesterday trying to break into your house. They had syringes filled with sedatives and paperwork for involuntary commitment. Seems they planned to take you to Nevada regardless of legal authority. My blood ran cold. They were going to kidnap me. That's one word for it. The FBI thinks someone in the network ordered it. Revenge for disrupting their operation. Your parents might know who. 2 hours later, against every instinct, I sat in a federal detention center interview room. My parents were brought in separately. Standard procedure to prevent coordination. I'd see my mother first. She sat across from me, hands folded calmly despite the cuffs. "Hello, darling. You look tired." "What do you want?" "To protect you, believe it or not. What we built, it's bigger than you realized. People are angry about the disruption. They blame you. People you brought into my life? True. But that doesn't change the current danger. There's a man, Vincent Caruso. He runs the West Coast operation. Hoffman was just middle management. Caruso lost millions when the Nevada facility was raided after Ryan's arrest. He holds grudges. And you're telling me this, why? Because despite everything, you're my daughter. I brought you into this world. I won't let Caruso take you out of it. How touching. What do you want in exchange? She smiled, the first genuine expression I'd seen. You know me so well. Reduce sentences for cooperation. Your father and I have records, names, account numbers. 30 years of evidence that could bring down the entire network. You kept records that could implicate you. Insurance, darling. In our business, trust is a liability. We documented everything in case our partners ever turned on us. Ironic that it's useful now. I won't advocate for you. You destroyed lives. We destroyed no one who wasn't complicit in their own downfall. Greed made them vulnerable. We just exploited existing character flaws. Daniel wasn't greedy, he just trusted family. Something flickered in her eyes. Regret. Daniel was collateral damage. I'm not proud of that. He fought harder than anticipated, required stronger measures. It was messy. Messy, you destroyed his mind. And I'm offering to prevent the same happening to you. Caruso has judges, doctors, police in his pocket. Your FBI protection won't last forever, but I can give them enough to dismantle his operation entirely. In exchange for what a slap on the wrist, 20 years instead of life. Your father and I would be in our 80s when released, hardly a slap on the wrist. I stared at this woman who'd given birth to me, raised me, and then tried to destroy me. Did you ever love me? Either of us? Love. She considered the word like a foreign concept. I was proud of you. You exceeded expectations. But love is vulnerability, and we couldn't afford that. Though I suppose in the end you were our vulnerability anyway. We should have stuck to strangers. That's not love, that's regret over a failed investment. Perhaps, but it's all I have to offer. That and information that could save your life. The guard indicated time was up. As she stood, she paused. You asked if I ever loved you. Ask yourself this. Why did I call to warn you about Caruso? Why am I offering information now? Maybe I don't understand love the way you do, but I understand protection. You're my blood. That means something even to monsters like us. She was led away and my father was brought in. He looked worse than her jail already breaking him down. His hands shook as he sat. Tracy, his voice cracked. I'm sorry. No, you're not. I am. Not for what we did. That was just business. But for involving you and Ryan. That was miscalculated. Miscalculated? You tried to have me institutionalized. Your mother's idea. I wanted a simpler approach. Just the identity theft, some financial pressure. But she said you were too smart, would figure it out eventually. Better to be thorough, she said. She was usually right about these things. Usually? Clearly not this time. We underestimated you. Or maybe we trained you too well. Either way, we lost. You lost everything. Your freedom, your money, your family. The family was lost long ago, he said quietly. The moment we chose the first mark over honest work, everything after was just momentum. Then why continue? Why destroy so many lives? Because we were good at it. Because it was easier than admitting we'd become monsters. Because the money was addictive. Pick your reason. They're all true and all hollow. He looked at me with eyes that seemed suddenly clear. Your mother will give you names, numbers, details. Take them. Use them. Destroy what we built. It's the only useful thing we can offer you now. Why help me? Because in 20 years, when I walk out of prison, I'd like to think there might be something left to salvage. Some small piece of family that isn't built on lies. Naive, probably, but an old man needs hope. The guard moved to take him away. Dad. The word felt strange after everything. Was any of it real? Any memory, any moment when we were just family? He paused at the door. Your 8th birthday. You wanted a microscope. We couldn't afford it. We just lost everything in a deal gone bad. But your mother sold her wedding ring to buy it. You spent all day looking at pond water, telling us about the tiny worlds you'd discovered. For that day, we forgot about schemes and marks. We were just parents watching their daughter discover her calling. His voice broke. That was real. Then he was gone, leaving me with a memory I'd treasured now tainted by context. Even their love when it existed was transactional. A wedding ring for a birthday gift, a moment of normalcy paid for by pawned symbols of connection. Over the next days, my parents made good on their promises. They provided notebooks full of names, dates, financial records. The FBI had to assign an entire task force just to process the information. Caruso's network began falling like dominoes. Arrests in 6 states, frozen accounts in 12 countries, victims coming forward by the dozens. My mother was right about one thing: what they'd built was massive. A multi-generational con game that had stolen millions, destroyed hundreds of lives, corrupted entire institutions. And at the center of it all, my parents. the architects of misery who'd raised their children as accomplices. Ryan agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. During his deposition, he revealed something that shouldn't have surprised me, but did. "There was supposed to be another one," he said. "Another kid, I mean, between Tracy and me. Mom said the pregnancy was inconvenient, interfered with a long con they were running, so she took care of it. Said children were bad investments unless they could contribute to the business. Another ghost in our family's haunted history, a sibling who never existed because they couldn't be monetized. The trials would take months, maybe years. The network was fighting back with expensive lawyers and legal challenges, but the evidence was overwhelming, the testimonies damning. One by one, they would fall. I was in court when my parents were sentenced, 25 years each with possibility of parole in 20. They took it calmly as if they'd simply lost a business negotiation. As they were led away, my mother turned one last time. "Take care of yourself, darling," she said. "You're the only success we ever really had." I wanted to hate her for that, for trying to claim credit for who I'd become despite them. But I was too tired for hate. They were just two more criminals heading to prison, their empire in ruins, their family destroyed. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Patricia stood beside me, Agent Chen on the other side. "How does it feel to see your parents sentenced?" One called out. I thought about lying, giving them the soundbite they wanted about justice and closure. But I was done with lies. "It feels like nothing," I said honestly. "They're strangers who happened to raise me. Their sentence doesn't give back what they stole from their victims. It doesn't repair the damage they did. It just stops them from doing more." "Will you visit them?" "No, they made their choices. I've made mine. My life moves forward without them." As we walked away, Patricia squeezed my hand. "It's over," she said. But it wasn't not really. There would be more trials, more revelations. Victims would need help rebuilding their lives. The corruption my parents had sown would take years to fully uproot. And somewhere in federal prison, two people who'd created me would spend decades contemplating their choices, probably still convinced they were just better at the game than everyone else. I returned to work, to my real family at the hospital, where we fought death, not each other. Where success meant saving lives, not stealing them. Where trust was earned and freely given, not a weakness to exploit. My parents had taught me many things: how to read people, how to survive betrayal, how to fight when cornered. But the most important thing they'd taught me was what not to become. In trying to make me like them, they'd created their opposite. Someone who knew exactly how much damage the wrong choices could do. Their arrest was just a chapter closing. My story, the one I was writing for myself, was just beginning. The call came 6 months after my parents' sentencing. Prosecutor Sarah Winters, a woman who'd become oddly familiar through countless preparation sessions, sounded unusually tense. "Tracy, we have a problem. Your parents' lawyers filed a motion claiming ineffective counsel. They're trying to overturn their plea deals." I set down my coffee, the morning suddenly colder. "On what grounds?" "They claim their original attorneys didn't properly inform them of the implications of their cooperation, that they were coerced by the threat of life sentences. It's bullshit, but Judge Hartley is actually considering it." "They can't be serious." "Oh, it gets better. They've hired new counsel, Richard Dalton." The name hit like a punch. Dalton was infamous, a legal shark who specialized in getting convictions overturned on technicalities. He'd freed murderers, rapists, and countless white-collar criminals through legal manipulation. How can they afford Dalton? That's the million-dollar question. Literally, someone's funding this, and we need to know who. Can you come in this afternoon? The federal building had become too familiar over the months. I knew which elevator made grinding noises, which security guard had a new grandchild, which vending machine actually worked. It was a bizarre domesticity, born of trauma. Sarah's office was chaos. Boxes of evidence, whiteboards covered in connecting lines like conspiracy theorist decorations. She looked exhausted. "Dalton filed 18 motions this morning," she explained, challenging evidence, demanding new hearings, claiming prosecutorial misconduct. He's throwing everything at the wall. But my parents confessed. They provided evidence. How can he challenge that? He's arguing they were under duress, that I threatened them with manufactured charges if they didn't cooperate, that their original lawyers were incompetent for not challenging the evidence properly. That's insane. That's Dalton. He doesn't need to be right, just create enough doubt for an appeal. And Tracy, there's something else. He subpoenaed you. For what? As a witness. He's claiming you were part of a conspiracy to frame your parents, that you worked with the FBI to manufacture evidence. He wants to put you on the stand and tear you apart. I felt the walls closing in again, that familiar suffocation of being trapped in my family's web. Can he do that? He can try. We'll fight it. But Tracy, I need to be honest. If this goes to trial, it'll be brutal. Dalton will dig into every aspect of your life, twist every action you took to protect yourself into evidence of conspiracy. He'll paint you as the villain and your parents as victims. So what do? We figure out who's funding this and why. Your parents burned a lot of bridges, but someone with deep pockets wants them free. Any ideas? I thought about the network the names my parents had provided. Most were arrested or under investigation, but Caruso. Vincent Caruso. He was the West Coast head, lost millions when the operation collapsed. Caruso's in federal prison, life without parole. But his organization isn't. My mother warned me he held grudges, had resources. What if he's funding this to get my parents out so they can rebuild? Sarah made a note. It's possible. Or someone else from the network who escaped our net. I'll have the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit trace Dalton's retainer. In the meantime, we need to prepare for the worst. The next weeks were a blur of preparation. I met with Sarah daily, reviewing every interaction with my parents, every piece of evidence, every decision I'd made during those horrible months. Dalton's team, meanwhile, was conducting their own investigation. Patricia called one evening, her voice shaking. Tracy, I was visited by a private investigator today. He was asking about our meetings during your parents' scheme. Wanted to know if you'd ever discussed framing them. That's ridiculous. He had photos of us at the coffee shop, transcripts of calls. They're building a narrative that you orchestrated everything, that your poor parents were just trying to help their troubled daughter and got caught in your web of lies. The irony was suffocating. My parents' master manipulators were now playing victims, and they were good at it. Agent Chen was equally frustrated. Dalton's filed Freedom of Information requests for everything. Our investigation files, surveillance records, even internal emails. He's looking for any inconsistency, any sign of overreach. Will he find any? We did everything by the book, but Dalton can make a parking ticket look like corruption if it serves his narrative. And Tracy, he's hired expert witnesses, psychologists who'll testify about family dynamics, financial experts who'll claim the fraud evidence was misinterpreted. How is any of this legal? Welcome to the American justice system. With enough money and the right lawyer, you can challenge anything. The first real blow came 2 weeks later. Ryan had agreed to testify in the appeal, but not for our side. I met him at the Federal Detention Center, barely recognizing the man across from me. Prison had aged him decade in months, but his eyes held a new sharpness. Dalton made me a deal, he said without preamble. I testified that you manipulated me, that Mom and Dad were trying to help, and he gets my sentence reduced to time served. Ryan, you can't. You know what they did. I know what you all did. You think you're so different from them, Tracy. You used the system to destroy your own family. You worked with the feds, wore wires, gathered evidence. How is that different from what they did to their marks? Because I was defending myself, they were predators. Everyone's a predator when they're hungry enough. I'm hungry for freedom. Dalton says I can be out in 6 months if I play ball. And then what? Where will you go? What will you do? Caruso's people have offered me work. Real work, not the penny ante stuff Mom and Dad did. International finance, cryptocurrency, modern schemes for modern times. You're going to continue the family business. Someone has to. Might as well be me. At least I learned from their mistakes. I left the prison feeling sick. Ryan had chosen his side, and it wasn't mine. The family poison ran too deep in him to extract. Days later, Dalton made his move. A press conference on the federal courthouse steps my parents flanking him in their prison uniforms, looking frail and victimized. My clients are victims of a vindictive daughter who used law enforcement connections to destroy her own family. Dalton announced to the gathered media. Tracy Morrison, angry about family financial disputes, orchestrated an elaborate frame-up that would make Hollywood jealous. We have evidence of her mental instability, her manipulation of witnesses, her conspiracy with federal agents who were all too eager to close a high-profile case. Reporters shouted questions, but Dalton wasn't done. We'll prove that every piece of evidence against my clients was either fabricated or obtained illegally. That confessions were coerced through threats against their children, that Tracy Morrison is the real criminal here, and her parents are simply scapegoats for her own financial crimes. Watching on the news, I threw my remote at the wall. The crack it left seemed appropriate. Another scar from my family's endless capacity for destruction. Sarah called immediately. Don't watch anymore, don't read the comments, don't engage. He's lying, every word is a lie. I know, but he's creating reasonable doubt in the public mind. That's all he needs. Tracy, I hate to ask, but we need to accelerate our preparation. Can you clear your schedule for the next month? The hospital will understand. This is your life we're fighting for. If Dalton succeeds, if your parents are freed and the convictions overturned, you could face charges yourself. Conspiracy, fraud, false imprisonment. He's not just trying to free them, he's trying to destroy you. The next month was legal boot camp. Sarah's team drilled me relentlessly, preparing for every possible attack Dalton might launch. They brought in their own experts, psychologists to testify about manipulation and gaslighting financial analysts to verify the fraud former victims of my parents, ready to share their stories. But Dalton had his own arsenal. He'd found family members who'd benefited from my parents' schemes, ready to testify they were generous, loving people. He'd hired experts who'd claim the financial transactions were legitimate business dealings. Most damaging, he'd gotten sealed juvenile records that painted me as a troubled teen, records I didn't even know existed. When you were 15, you were arrested for shoplifting. Sarah showed me the file. Charges were dropped, but the arrest record exists. That wasn't, yes, but the memory flooded back. My parents had sent me into a store to steal electronics while they created a distraction. When I was caught, they'd acted shocked, disappointed. My parents made me do it. It was part of a scheme. Can you prove that? Of course not. I was 15. I didn't know to gather evidence against my own parents. Then Dalton will use it to show a pattern of criminal behavior that predates any alleged abuse. He'll claim you learned to steal from them, then turn those skills against them. Every day brought new revelations, new twists of truth into lies. Dalton was a master at reframing reality, taking facts and spinning them into an alternate narrative where my parents were heroes and I was the villain. Patricia, bless her, tried to help by gathering support from other family members who'd seen through my parents. But many were too scared to testify, fearing they'd become targets. Others had made peace with their losses and didn't want to relive the trauma. They're going to win, I said one night, exhausted after another brutal prep session. They're actually going to get away with it. No, Sarah said firmly. They're good, but we have truth on our side. Truth doesn't seem to matter. It matters. It always matters. We just have to present it clearly enough that even Dalton's smoke and mirrors can't obscure it. But as the hearing date approached, I wondered if she was right. My parents had spent their lives perfecting the art of deception. Now they had one of the best legal minds in the country, wielding those skills for them. And all I had was the truth. Messy, complicated, painful truth that was so much less compelling than their carefully crafted lies. The war for my life had entered its final phase, and I wasn't sure I was strong enough to win it. But I had no choice but to try. Because if my parents succeeded, if they walked free and I was painted as the criminal, it would be more than my life destroyed. It would validate every scam they'd ever run, every life they'd ruined. It would prove that with enough skill and the right lawyer, anyone could rewrite reality. I couldn't let that happen. Not to their other victims, not to future Marks, and not to myself. The trial of the century, as the media was calling it, was about to begin, and I was both the key witness and the real defendant. The federal courthouse had never felt more imposing than on the morning the hearing began. Media vans lined the street, reporters thrust microphones at anyone who might be connected to the case. I entered through a side door flanked by FBI agents, feeling like a criminal, despite being the victim. Inside, the courtroom was packed. I saw familiar faces from the past months, other victims of my parents' family members whose loyalties remained unclear, and in the front row, perfectly positioned for the cameras, Richard Dalton. He was younger than I'd expected, handsome in that predatory way successful lawyers often are. When our eyes met, he smiled like we were old friends sharing a private joke. I looked away, finding my seat behind the prosecution table. My parents entered in chains, but Dalton had worked his magic even there. They wore ill-fitting clothes that made them look frail, their hair unkempt, faces gaunt. My mother had somehow acquired reading glasses that aged her 10 years. My father walked with a slight limp I'd never seen before. The transformation was remarkable, from predators to prey in appearance. Judge Hartley, a stern woman in her 60s, brought the court to order. We're here to consider the motion to vacate the plea agreements of Sandra and Robert Morrison based on claims of ineffective counsel and prosecutorial misconduct. Mr. Dalton, you may begin. What followed was a masterclass in legal manipulation. Dalton painted a picture of two elderly parents confused and frightened, railroaded by an overzealous prosecution in league with their vindictive daughter. Every piece of evidence was reframed, every confession explained away. My clients were threatened, Dalton stated, pacing before the judge, told that if they didn't cooperate, they'd die in prison, that their son would face additional charges, that their daughter, despite being the architect of their downfall, would ensure they never saw freedom again. Objection! Sarah stood. There's no evidence of any threats. I have sworn affidavits from my clients detailing the coercion they faced, but more importantly, your honor. I have evidence that the primary witness against them, their own daughter, orchestrated this entire situation for financial gain. He produced documents with a flourish. Bank records showing Tracy Morrison was in significant debt from medical school, credit reports indicating financial stress, and then, miraculously, after her parents' arrest and the seizure of their assets, applications for loans citing expected inheritance as collateral. I wanted to scream. The loans were for home repairs after Ryan's destruction, the inheritance, a bitter joke I'd made to a loan officer about maybe getting my own belongings back. But presented this way, it looked damning. Furthermore, Dalton continued, we have testimony from Ryan Morrison that his sister coached him on what to say to authorities, promising him leniency if he implicated their parents. Ryan took the stand, and I barely recognized my brother. Gone was the swaggering con artist. In his place sat a broken young man who spoke hesitantly about being manipulated by Tracy. She told me our parents were evil. He said, not meeting my eyes. Said if I didn't help her, she'd make sure I rotted in prison. I was scared, confused. I said whatever she wanted me to say. And was it true? Dalton asked gently. Some of it maybe, but Tracy made it sound so much worse than it was. Our parents helped family members with financial problems. Maybe they weren't always transparent about it, but their intentions were good. Sarah's cross-examination was brutal but necessary. Mr. Morrison, you previously testified under oath about your parents' fraud schemes. Were you lying then, or are you lying now? I was confused then. Tracy had me all twisted up. You were recorded discussing the schemes. Was Tracy ventriloquizing for you? Those recordings were edited, taken out of context. It went on for hours. Ryan stuck to his news story with the determination of someone whose freedom depended on it, which of course it did. The next day brought the expert witnesses. A psychologist testified about shared delusional disorder, suggesting I'd convinced Ryan and others that normal family financial arrangements were sinister plots. A financial analyst claimed the fraud evidence showed unconventional but not illegal money management. A former judge, one I later learned had been quietly removed from the bench for taking bribes, testified about the dangers of overzealous prosecution. But the real blow came on day 3. Dalton called a surprise witness, Dr. Patricia Chen, my former supervisor. Dr. Chen. Dalton began smoothly. You supervised Tracy Morrison at the hospital. Did you have concerns about her mental state? Patricia looked uncomfortable but answered honestly. There was a period where her family expressed concerns. We took them seriously enough to require a brief leave. And during this time, did Dr. Morrison make accusations against her family? She claimed they were trying to steal from her, yes. Claimed. Did she provide proof? Not initially. The situation was complex. Dalton smiled. Complex. That's one word for it. Tell me, in your professional opinion, could someone under extreme stress create elaborate conspiracy theories to explain personal failures? Objection, Sarah called. Dr. Chen is not a psychiatrist. Sustained, rephrased Mr. Dalton. Dr. Chen, in your experience, have you seen medical professionals under stress exhibit paranoid behavior? It can happen, yes. The job is demanding. And Dr. Morrison was under significant stress. Financial problems, family issues, work pressure. All residents face stress. But not all residents accuse their families of elaborate criminal conspiracies, do they? The questioning continued, each answer twisted to support Dalton's narrative. By the time Patricia left the stand, I looked like a stressed-out doctor who'd snapped and blamed her loving family for her problems. Sarah fought back brilliantly. She brought in Agent Chen to detail the evidence, other victims to testify about their experiences, financial experts to explain the clear fraud. But Dalton countered every point, muddying waters, creating doubt. The most dramatic moment came when Dalton called my mother to testify. She took the stand, slowly looking every inch the wounded parent. Mrs. Morrison. Dalton said gently, "Tell us about your relationship with Tracy." "We loved her more than life itself," my mother said, tears flowing. "Sacrificed everything for her education, her dreams. When she became a doctor, we were so proud." What changed? The stress of her job, the isolation. She became paranoid, accused us of wanting her money. We just wanted to help Ryan get back on his feet, and she saw it as some conspiracy. "Did you ever steal from your daughter?" "Never. Every penny we've ever taken from anyone was freely given. We've helped family members manage finances, yes. Some investments didn't work out, but that's not fraud. That's life." "Why did you plead guilty?" "They said Tracy would destroy Ryan if we didn't. Said she had the FBI convinced of her delusions. We thought if we cooperated, took responsibility even for things we didn't do, we could protect what was left of our family." Sarah's cross-examination was fierce. "Mrs. Morrison, you provided detailed records of fraud schemes going back 30 years. Were those fabricated?" "We kept records of all financial transactions. The prosecution interpreted them as something sinister." "You documented manipulation tactics, identified marks, detailed schemes." "We documented business strategies, identified clients, detailed investments. Language can be twisted, Ms. Winters." "What about the victims who testified?" "People who made bad investments and want someone to blame. We're convenient scapegoats." It was masterful. Every admission reframed, every piece of evidence explained away. My mother had spent a lifetime perfecting her craft, and this was her greatest performance. When I finally took the stand, I felt the weight of everything crushing down. Dalton approached like a friendly snake. "Dr. Morrison, let's start simple. Do you love your parents?" The question caught me off guard. It's complicated. Complicated. They raised you, supported your education, celebrated your successes. What's complicated about that? They also stole my identity, destroyed my credit, tried to have me institutionalized. Allegedly. But let's explore that. You were under tremendous stress at work, correct? Yes, but financial pressure, student loans, mortgage payments. Like every resident, yes. And when your brother needed help, needed family support, you saw it as an attack. They moved him in without asking, forged documents. Or did they? You were working long shifts, admittedly exhausted. Isn't it possible you agreed to help Ryan and forgot that stress made you misremember? No, that's not. You installed hidden cameras in your home, surveillance equipment to spy on your family. Is that normal behavior? I was gathering evidence. Of what a crime you imagined, or were you looking for ammunition to use against parents you resented? It continued for hours. Every action I'd taken to protect myself was twisted into evidence of paranoia or manipulation. Dalton was skilled at making me doubt my own memories, my own experiences. I understood how Daniel had broken, how victims before me had crumbled under the weight of gaslighting. But then something shifted. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe clarity, but I stopped defending and started attacking. Mr. Dalton, I said during a brief pause, how much are you being paid for this case? He blinked, surprised. That's not relevant. Isn't it my parents claimed poverty, said they needed my help, yet they can afford you? Where did the money come from? Objection, he said quickly. The witness is questioning counsel. I'm questioning the entire premise of this hearing, I shot back. My supposedly impoverished parents hired one of the most expensive lawyers in the country. Either they lied about needing money, which proves fraud, or someone else is funding this, which raises questions about why. Judge Hartley leaned forward. It's a fair point. Mr. Dalton, who is financing this defense, that's privileged information, Your Honor. Not if it's relevant to the claims being made. I'm ordering you to disclose your funding source. Dalton's smooth facade cracked slightly. I need to consult with my clients. You do that. We'll recess until tomorrow. As court adjourned, I saw my parents huddled with Dalton, their expressions no longer confident. Sarah grabbed my arm as we left. That was brilliant. You just opened a door Dalton didn't want opened. Will it matter? If Caruso or his organization is funding this, it proves ongoing criminal conspiracy. It destroys their victim narrative. That night, I couldn't sleep. The next day would likely determine everything. My freedom, my future, my life. I thought about all the victims who'd come before me, who'd been crushed by my parents' machine. I thought about Daniel broken and hidden away. I thought about Ryan choosing to continue the cycle rather than break it. And I thought about my 8-year-old self looking through that microscope my mother bought with her pawned wedding ring. Even their love came with a price tag. Even their gifts were transactions. Tomorrow, one way or another, the transactions would end. The family business would close. And maybe, just maybe, truth would matter more than performance. The war was almost over. I just had to survive one more day. The courtroom was electric with tension when we reconvened. Dalton looked less composed, his usual swagger replaced by something sharper, more desperate. My parents sat rigidly, no longer playing the frail victims. They knew something had shifted. Judge Hartley didn't waste time. Mr. Dalton, have you consulted with your clients about the funding source? Your Honor, after consideration, we must maintain attorney-client privilege. Then I'll make it simple, the judge interrupted. Without transparency about potential conflicts of interest, I'm inclined to view this entire motion with skepticism. You have 1 minute to decide. Dalton whispered frantically with my parents. My mother's mask had dropped completely, her face hard with calculation. Finally, Dalton stood. The defense has been funded by a legal defense fund established by concerned family members. Which family members? Sarah pressed. I'm not at liberty. The courtroom doors burst open. Agent Chen entered with several FBI agents and a man in handcuffs I recognized from photos, Marcus Webb, my parents' financial network partner. Your Honor. Chen announced, Marcus Webb was arrested this morning attempting to flee the country. He's agreed to cooperate fully in exchange for consideration. He has direct knowledge of the funding for this defense. Judge Hartley's eyes narrowed. This is highly irregular, but given the circumstances. Mr. Webb, you're under oath. Who funded the Morrison defense? Webb looked terrified. Vincent Caruso's organization. $10 million to get them released so they could rebuild the network. I was supposed to manage the finances once they were free. The courtroom exploded. Reporters typed frantically. My parents' faces went ashen. Dalton tried to object but seemed to have lost his words. So, Judge Hartley said slowly, we've convicted fraudsters being defended by money from a criminal organization with plans to continue their criminal activities upon release. Mr. Dalton, do you have anything to say? My clients were unaware of the funding source he managed. Really? Sarah stood holding a paper. Because I have here a recorded call from federal prison where Sandra Morrison discusses Caruso's generous offer with an unknown party. Would you like me to play it? My mother closed her eyes. My father slumped in his chair. Even now, caught completely, they were calculating odds, looking for angles. Your Honor, Sarah continued, this proves ongoing criminal conspiracy. The Morrisons haven't reformed. They haven't accepted responsibility. They're active participants in a continuing criminal enterprise. We request not only denial of their motion, but additional charges for conspiracy and racketeering. I'm inclined to agree, Judge Hartley said. But first, I want to hear from Dr. Morrison one more time. Doctor, please take the stand. I walked to the witness chair on unsteady legs. This time, Dalton didn't approach. He knew he'd lost. Dr. Morrison. The judge said, her voice gentler now. You've been through an ordeal that would break most people. Your family, the people who should have protected you instead, tried to destroy you. Do you have anything you'd like to say to them? I looked at my parents for what I knew would be the last time. My mother met my gaze defiantly. My father couldn't look at me at all. For 30 years, I began my voice stronger than I felt. You've destroyed lives. Aunt Margaret, who trusted you with her home. Daniel, whose mind you broke. Grandpa Morrison, who died alone because you stole his dignity along with his savings. Dozens of others whose names we'll never know. You raised Ryan and me as tools for your schemes. We weren't children to you. We were future assets, potential accomplices. Every lesson you taught was about manipulation. Every moment of affection was transactional. But you failed, not because you weren't skilled criminals. You were brilliant at that. You failed because you couldn't imagine that one of your victims would fight back and win. You couldn't conceive that truth might matter more than performance. I used to wonder if you ever loved us. I don't wonder anymore. You're incapable of love because love requires vulnerability, and you see vulnerability as weakness. But here's what you never understood. Vulnerability is strength. Asking for help is strength. Truth is strength. I feel sorry for you. You'll spend your remaining years in prison clinging to your delusions of superiority, never understanding that the very skills you prized, manipulation, deception, exploitation, are what made your lives empty. You won. Congratulations. You won nothing. I stepped down amid complete silence. My mother's defiant expression had cracked, showing something that might have been recognition or regret. My father was crying silently. Judge Hartley cleared her throat. In my 20 years on the bench, I've rarely seen such a clear case of unrepentant criminality hiding behind legal manipulation. The motion to vacate the plea agreements is denied. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the prosecution for additional charges. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, you gambled on your ability to manipulate the system one more time. You lost. The gavel came down with finality. FBI agents moved to escort my parents out. As they passed, my mother paused. "Tracy," she said quietly. "The microscope. That birthday. It wasn't my ring I sold. It was stolen from a pawn shop. Even that was a lie." Then they were gone, leaving me with one final betrayal, one last twist of the knife. Even my cherished memory was tainted. The aftermath was swift. Dalton withdrew from the case, his reputation damaged by association with Caruso's organization. Webb's testimony led to 17 more arrests. The network my parents had spent decades building crumbled in weeks. Ryan took a deal testifying against Caruso's organization in exchange for witness protection. I received one letter from him. "Tracy, I know you won't forgive me, and I'm not asking you to, but maybe someday I can be better than what they made us. Maybe we both can. Take care of yourself. R." I didn't reply. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. 6 months later, I stood in a community center addressing a room full of fraud victims. Patricia sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Agent Chen leaned against the back wall, having become an unexpected friend through everything. "Recovery isn't about getting back what was stolen," I told the group. "It's about building something new from whatever remains. Our abusers wanted us broken, silent, ashamed. Every day we speak our truth, we defeat them again." After the meeting, a young woman approached. "Dr. Morrison, I'm Lily Chen. Your parents..." "They destroyed my grandparents, convinced them to invest their retirement in a fake company. I just wanted to thank you for fighting back, for all of us who couldn't." These moments made everything worthwhile. Every legal battle, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, it all led to this, helping others reclaim their lives from predators, like my parents. The hospital welcomed me back fully, my reputation restored, and even enhanced by my ordeal. Dr. Chen, Patricia as I now called her, became a mentor and friend. "You survived something that would have destroyed most people," she told me. "That's a kind of strength we need in medicine." I sold the house, unable to live with its ghosts. The new place was smaller but cleaner, untainted by schemes and lies. I dated cautiously therapy, helping me navigate trust and intimacy after a lifetime of transactional relationships. 2 years after the trial, I received notice that my mother had died in prison. Heart attack, the report said. My father, broken by her loss, followed 3 months later. I didn't attend the funerals. They'd been dead to me since that final day in court. Instead, I established the Morrison Victim Recovery Fund with money recovered from their schemes. It provides counseling, legal assistance, and financial planning for fraud victims. Something good from all that pain. 5 years later, I married James Parker, the FBI financial analyst who'd traced the money funding my parents' defense. "I fell for you the moment you asked Dalton about his fees," he confessed. "Brilliant tactical move." I was just angry, I admitted. Angry and brilliant, my favorite combination. Our wedding was small, filled with chosen family rather than blood relatives. Patricia walked me down the aisle. Agent Chen stood as James's best man. The reception was at the community center, fraud survivors and FBI agents dancing together, celebrating love, triumphing over deception. In my wedding speech, I said, "My biological parents taught me that family was about blood and obligation, about what you could take, rather than what you could give. They were wrong. Family is about choice, about showing up, about love without price tags. Today, I'm grateful for my real family, all of you who helped me rebuild when everything fell apart." 10 years have passed since that night my parents invaded my home. I have 2 children now, Sarah, age 6, and David, 4. They're growing up in a house filled with love where trust isn't weakness and vulnerability isn't currency. When Sarah asks about her grandparents, I tell her the truth in age-appropriate ways. Some people make choices that hurt others. We can learn from their mistakes and choose differently. The Morrison Victim Recovery Fund has helped over 300 families. We've partnered with the FBI to create early warning systems for family fraud. I speak at conferences sharing our story to help others recognize the signs. Sometimes late at night, I think about my parents, not with anger or sadness, but with a kind of distant curiosity. What made them choose deception over connection? What hollow victory did they think they were winning? I'll never have answers, and I've made peace with that. Ryan never contacted me again, but I heard he testified in several major fraud cases before disappearing into witness protection. I hope he found the redemption he mentioned. I hope he broke the cycle. Last month, a young medical student approached me after a lecture. Dr. Morrison, she said, "I'm Daniel's daughter. My dad wanted me to tell you that watching you fight gave him strength to keep going. He's doing better now. Not perfect, but better. We both wanted to thank you." I hugged her, this next generation untouched by our family's poison. That's the real victory. Not the convictions or the recoveries, but the cycles broken the children who'll never know their grandparents' kind of love. As I write this, my daughter is looking through her first microscope, a gift for her 7th birthday. She calls excitedly about the tiny worlds she's discovering, and I'm transported back to my own childhood wonder. But this microscope was purchased honestly, given freely, wrapped in love without conditions. "Mommy, look," Sarah says. "There's so much life in just one drop of water." There is, sweetheart. I agree, thinking about all the life that can grow from even the most poisoned ground with enough light and care and truth. My parents thought they were teaching me to be like them. Instead, they taught me exactly who I never wanted to be. In trying to break me, they forged me into someone unbreakable. Their legacy isn't the schemes or the victims or the years of pain. Their legacy is the strength they accidentally gave me and every life saved because of it. The war is over. I won. But more importantly, I survived. I healed, and I built something beautiful from the ashes they left behind. That's the best revenge I could imagine. A life filled with the genuine love and trust they never understood. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you've experienced family betrayal, financial abuse, or manipulation disguised as love, know that you're not alone. Recovery is possible. Truth matters. And sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the family we're given. Remember, vulnerability is not weakness. Asking for help is not failure. And love, real love, never comes with a price tag. What would you do if your family turned against you? How would you fight back? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with others who might need to hear it. Together we can break the cycles of abuse and build something better. Until next time, hold your chosen family close and remember, you are stronger than those who tried to break you.